Chapter 2055. After a brief pause, Duanmu Qitian and Shangguan Tianqin's expressions changed drastically. Shock and astonishment appeared on their faces at the same time. Finally venting his grief, Su Yi's sharp gaze gradually softened, and a relieved smile appeared on his face. Just now, he had been thinking about his parents under the influence of alcohol. Now that he heard news about his father, Su Yi smiled bitterly in his heart. Was this good or bad? Looking at the two people in front of him, Su Yi's heartbeat began to accelerate. He exhaled deeply, and his lips trembled slightly. Do you know where he is now? And my mother? Have you seen her? Su Yi unconsciously took a step forward. His eyes were filled with anticipation, as if he wanted to see through Shangguan Tianqin. Being stared at by Su Yi's dark eyes, Shangguan Tianqin felt as if he had been electrocuted. Doubts arose in his heart. Su Yi was clearly only at the third level of the origin ancestor realm, but his soul energy was enough to make him shudder. Shangguan Tianqin said in astonishment. The Tian Yao school was destroyed because of the heavenly wind divine sword and the golden heaven suppressing stone. The domain pearl belonged to the heavenly wind martial pavilion, and it was a secret that Man City did not reveal. 20 years ago, after Master taught us martial techniques, he passed on the secrets of the ancestral dragon medicine manual and the domain pearl to us. Jing Yuan and I agreed to act separately. I will search for the heavenly wind divine sword and the golden heaven suppressing stone for the Tian Yao school. Jing Yuan will be in charge of finding the domain pearl and the whereabouts of the white flood dragon god. Then, the three of them fell into silence. Su Yi was a little puzzled. Why did Duanmu Qingtian only pass on the ancestral dragon medicine manual to Shangguan Tianqin and not his own father? This thought flashed through his mind. Even though he already knew the answer in his heart, he still couldn't help but tremble when he heard it. As he spoke, huge teardrops fell from the corners of Su Yi's eyes. Blood was thicker than water. How could Su Yi not be excited to hear news about his father? He asked in a low and hoarse voice. What happened after that? What happened next? You'll know what happened after that. I've been wandering around the heavenly barbarian continent, painstakingly searching for the heavenly wind divine sword. In the end, I found out about it from the chaos region and chased after it. As for when Brother Jing Yuan got married and how he gave birth to his children, I have no idea. R0 at $1 Qingtian's eyes moved slightly. He patted them heavily on the shoulder and said in a low voice, That kid is just like you, bold and reckless. He has the same extraordinary talent. He should be fine. After a long while, Su Yi's lowered head abruptly lifted up. A trace of blush flew out from the corner of his eyes, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a smile. Finally, there's news about father. At the very least, it's a good thing. Then, Su Yi turned around and faced these two men who had a great relationship with his father. Immediately, he felt warm in his heart and bowed respectfully. In that case, I will leave the palace tomorrow. The day he returns will be the day the Long family is annihilated. The snow was falling and the wind was strong. The lights at the foot of the mountain were waning. Large amounts of starlight slowly sprinkled on Su Yi's red robe. His black hair fluttered, and his starry eyes were filled with the radiance of determination. After that, Su Yi bade farewell to the two of them and returned to the heavenly divine palace. Today, Duanmu Xiaoman specially gave the palace master's room to Su Yi and Lu Ruoxi. The huge palace master's secret room was decorated in a festive manner. The thin blanket woven from golden silk was magnificent. After entering the palace, Su Yi was completely awake. However, he was inexplicably nervous and his breathing was a little hurried. He slowly got up from the bed. Lu Ruoxi sat quietly with a veil draped over her head. It was like a beautiful picture. Straight ahead, red dates were spread all over the floor. Guilian straightened his body and used a bamboo stick to lift Lu Ruoxi's veil. The two of them looked at each other, and a fragrant wind blew in their faces. Lu Ruashi's face was flushed red, and she turned her head to one side. She was extremely beautiful today. Her hazy eyes were filled with a faint light. She pursed her lips tightly, and the red glow had already spread to her neck. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. "You're back." Sui grunted and slowly lifted Lu Ruashi's chin. His handsome face gradually heated up, and he looked at this face that was completely his with extreme appreciation. A soft moan came from Bai Yu's neck. Her voice was soft and gentle. Lu Ruashi had already fallen into this dark and ambiguous atmosphere. "Ruashi," Sui growled. His body suddenly heated up, like a ferocious beast that was ready to pounce, staring at its prey. "Are you still going to call me Ruashi?" Lu Ruashi rolled her eyes and gently pulled Su-Yi's lapel back. Su-Yi lost his balance and placed his hands between Lu Ruashi's ears. Just like that, the two of them looked at each other and stuck close to each other. Looking at Lu Ruashi's teeth that were as white as pearls, pink and tender, and the faint but charming smile at the corner of her mouth, Su-Yi was already burning with desire. In the silence, Su-Yi pulled back his right hand. The curtains fell and the lights went out at the same time. Then, the sounds of dragons and phoenixes came from the bed. The mattress shook and a few bell-like sounds came from the darkness, turning into charming voices. The sky gradually turned white and the mountains rippled. After a night of hustle and bustle, the peak before Zhongjin was already in a mess. The mess after the wedding banquet showed the extreme jubilation of yesterday's wedding. A few mountains were half hidden in the thin morning mist, and there were huge stone walls at the top with undulating peak. Under the yellow and orange light, they became as soft as cream, gentle and moving. The entire Yutian palace was enshrouded in flowing immortal qi, stretching out and dazzling. Today, Sui had already woken up early. Looking at Lu Ruashi, who was still sleeping soundly, a faint sweet smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He gently slid his palm across Lu Ruashi's face. Soft hair hung down, lightly dancing on her snow-white face. Sui guessed that this was probably the most peaceful night Lu Ruashi had slept in so many years. Sitting up and tidying up, Sui quietly pushed open the door and left. When he turned back, his eyes flashed with a terrifying cold light. "Ruashi, I will bear your hatred for you. Wait for me to come back. I'll use this old man's head as a bench." Pushing open the door, Sui flew out of the Yutian palace, covered in the light morning frost, facing the green leaves and morning dew. Walking on the water, he passed through Gonke Lake. Countless simple houses passed by him on both sides. Like a humanoid flying beast, Sui left a few ripples on the surface of the lake and rushed to the place where he had met the white flood dragon god that day. "I didn't expect that when I came here again, the white flood dragon god would already be gone. And the Yutian palace has already gone through so many things." Looking at the tranquil scenery around him, Sui sighed with emotion. Sui closed his eyes, enjoying the last moment of peace. He was about to leave the palace. Immediately, he opened his spiritual sense. The mountain birds chirped and the wilderness was desolate. His mind quickly caught a trace of extremely faint soul energy remaining in the air. If not for the mysterious light ball, he wouldn't have been able to detect it. Thinking of Shangguan Tianqian at the peak of buried heaven last night, Sui couldn't help but smile. He said loudly, "Come out. I didn't detect it last night, so how can I let it slip away today?" Chapter 2056. Behind the shady tree, a white figure slowly walked out from the spatial ripples. It was none other than Shangguan Tianqian. "Sect Master, I knew that I couldn't hide anything from you." Shangguan Tianqian laughed heartily as he bowed to Sui. Sui waved his hand and shrugged. "Third stage Yuan domain realm. Although I'm a stage lower than you, it's not to the extent that I can't capture the soul energy. I drank the spiritual wine last night, but I was fooled." Walking forward, Sui cracked his neck and said indifferently, Are you here to send me off early in the morning? Shangguan Tianqian smiled and shook his head. He took out a bottle of pills from his interspatial bag and waved it in front of Su Yi as he looked at him. Not really. Sect Master's soul energy is too strong. No matter how good I am at hiding, how can I hide from you? It's just that I used this treasure. As he spoke, Shangguan Tianqian took out a pill from the bottle and placed it in his palm. The pill glowed with a dim light and a fragrant aroma filled the air. What is this? Su Yi asked curiously as his gaze landed on the pill. Shangguan Tianqian weighed the pill in his hand, narrowed his eyes, and swallowed it into his mouth. Suddenly, the aura around him surged, and in front of Su Yi, Shangguan Tianqian hid his aura once again. Su Yi closed his eyes and carefully sensed the aura around him. Standing before him, Shangguan Tianqian seemed to have merged with the surroundings. Yuan domain realm cultivators were already very familiar with the Yuan Qi around them. With this, Shangguan Tianqian's aura was further concealed, making him unfathomable and mysterious. Compared to ordinary cultivation techniques that could conceal one's aura, this miraculous pill was even more mysterious. Su Yi thought to himself, if he used it in battle, it would be a huge advantage. Who? Shangguan Tianqian pointed his palm downwards, and his Yuan Qi trembled. He flew up the tree like a swallow, but there were still no ripples in the air. Su Yi couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Nodding his head, he raised his head and looked at the shaking leaf. What a treasure! What a great treasure! The martial skills and soul skills that he currently possessed that could restrain one's aura, the cloud shadow frost steps, the mistflower mirror snow, and the wind dragon moon concealment, could both create small barriers. While it was possible to conceal one's aura by concealing one's aura, the greatest drawback was that it would drain one's origin energy and soul energy. He still hadn't fully grasped the ultimate move, cloud shadow treading frost. He still needed to expend a lot of soul energy to create countless illusions. Positive percent? Version percent first US post P0. Even if it was practical, it wasn't something that could be mastered right now. If he had this bottle of elixir, Su Yi could just feed the corner of his mouth to the dogs and kill people without anyone knowing. So, Shangguan Tianqian turned into a streak of light and returned to Su Yi's side. He smiled and said, Sovereign, take this shadow shuttle pellet. For me? Su Yi's eyes flickered as he looked at Shangguan Tianqian with a complicated expression, not knowing what he meant. Seeing Su Yi keep the shadow shuttle pellet into his spatial bag, Shangguan Tianqian's expression turned serious. The shadow shuttle pellet comes from this medicine cannon. Sovereign, open your palm. Shangguan Tianqian greeted Su Yi slightly and asked Su Yi to extend his hand. He crossed his hands and tapped Su Yi's forehead with his right hand. Relax, don't resist. Master asked me to pass this to you. His voice was like the wind as it gently floated into Su Yi's sea of consciousness. Within his sea of consciousness, Su Yi gradually calmed down. The mysterious ball of light also stopped moving as a mystical radiance illuminated his entire mind. Boom! An explosion of information rushed in like a wild beast. Su Yi interpreted it one by one and repeated the meaning of the words in his heart. Dragon Ancestor Medicine Cannon? Is this a treasure of the Long family? Su Yi muttered softly. Unknowingly, his body began to heat up as an extreme dragon aura rushed into Su Yi's meridians. He had once heard from Duanmu Qintian that he had entered the Long family to steal the medicine cannon and was hunted down. Because of his powerful strength, he was suspected of having the heaven-suppressing golden stone. Crack! Suddenly, his body was overflowing with an ancient aura. A desolate and fierce aura gradually merged with Su Yi's flesh and blood, releasing crackling sounds. Yes, this is the Dragon Ancestor Medicine Cannon of the Long family. It was written by the Long family using the aura of the five-clawed golden dragon. The collection contains 10,000 years of medical experience. Ordinary people would not be able to comprehend it. Only those with the golden dragon bloodline can comprehend it. As soon as he finished speaking, Shangguan Tianqian retracted his hand and opened his eyes. His body was emitting faint golden runes, looking incomparably mystical. Sovereign, Master asked me to pass it to you. He said that you can comprehend it. Could it be? Shangguan Tianqian looked at Su Yi in confusion. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Yi retracted his aura and opened his eyes. Instantly, a terrifying aura of the golden dragon erupted from his body. Roar! A violent dragon roar surrounded Su Yi, bringing with it a strong gust of wind. It directly forced Shangguan Tianqian to take 2 steps back. Shangguan Tianqian's face changed drastically as he felt the suppression of his bloodline. His soul trembled and his brows furrowed. Incomparably shocked, he spoke to Su Yi. Sovereign, this is the golden dragon bloodline. His gaze landed on a piece of golden dragon scale in Su Yi's hand, shining with a breathtaking radiance. A faint golden dragon shadow floated out from behind him. Vaguely, Su Yi's aura became even more violent. It was terrifying and ferocious. Purring! Shangguan Tianqian's body trembled as he half knelt on the ground. The aura of the golden dragon above his head exploded like thunder. Divine Dragon. Envoy. Sovereign, you are also the Divine Dragon Envoy. Shangguan Tianqian suppressed the surging shock in his heart. All the hair on his body stood on end, and his expression turned solemn. After a long while, Su Yi slowly retracted the golden light of the Divine Dragon. His expression immediately became solemn as he spoke in a low voice. Senior 5-clawed Golden Dragon gave me this token and appointed me as the Divine Dragon Commander. Other than that, Han Wulong of the Boundless Sect also has the Golden Dragon bloodline. Shangguan Tianqian's entire body flushed red. His cold aura spread out as he spoke with pursed lips. Yes, Tian Yao School will definitely prosper, Sovereign. Tian Yao School will definitely prosper. After the Golden Sky Array, Shangguan Tianqian had been secretly delighted by Su Yi's shocking talent. He had never thought that Su Yi would also be the Divine Dragon Commander. How could he not be happy? You have to protect the Golden Dragon bloodline well. The Long family's bloodline is constantly diluting, and we will definitely become a thorn in their side. Su Yi's eyes were filled with worry. He frowned slightly. Han Wulong's example was still vivid in his mind. After enduring for so many years, the Long family was also quite wary of his reputation in Yunzhou. Shangguan Tianqian kept nodding. He looked at Su Yi and said in a low voice, I understand. The Long family is eyeing us covetously. I will restrain myself. The Sky Sovereign also told me that there is something I must tell you. Chapter 2057. What? Su Yi was puzzled. Why didn't Duanmu Qingtian say it in person? Why did he ask Shangguan Tianqian to pass the message? Shangguan Tianqian scratched his head and said mysteriously, Master said that now that we have the Heavenly Wind Sword and Heavenly Wind Sword intent, we have an inseparable relationship with the Heavenly Wind Martial Pavilion. Therefore, he asked me to tell him about the clues he found in the Heavenly Wind ruins when he was escaping. He found a shell there with a fragment of the Heavenly Wind Sword intent and the Realm Pearl. Where is it? Su Yi's eyes lit up. His mind was on high alert. His eyes were filled with excitement. The Heavenly Wind Martial Pavilion was the first ancient force in the Heavenly Barbarian continent. 10,000 years ago, it was destroyed by the joint attack of the 5 great families. The treasures and martial techniques in the ruins were no joke. Moreover, he had been unable to comprehend the Heavenly Wind Sword intent. He might be able to find some clues there. Su Yi, who was always competitive, was overjoyed. After coughing, Shangguan Tianqian's eyes flashed. He pointed to the southwest and said seriously, The vast sea. Master found the vast sea in that place. There were 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea. One of the seas was the vast sea. Separated from the endless sky sea region was the famous chaos region. The vast sea was very big, and there were many islands in it. It was a famous island group in the heavenly barbarian continent. There were many rogue cultivators on it, and each of them had their own territory. The vast sea. Sui murmured and raised his eyebrows. He thought of the palace master of the vast sea palace, Lin Shuangping. During the soul riding competition, Lin Shuangping always invited him to the vast sea palace. I have to go. Su Yi's eyes flickered as he looked in the direction of the sea. He was eager to give it a try. Changing the topic, Su Yi straightened his expression and sized up Shangguan Tianqian. He asked curiously, Xiahong House is the descendant of Tianfeng Martial Pavilion. Why didn't I hear Master mention it at the sacred mountain? Shangguan Tianqian smiled and said mysteriously, the snow-red house is the reincarnation of the golden celestial stone. The Sky Wind Martial Pavilion only had the golden celestial stone back then. Speaking of which, compared to him, the relationship between the sect master and the Sky Wind Martial Pavilion is even deeper. Besides, we shouldn't let the goodies flow into our own fields. Hearing this, Su Yi nodded in understanding. He laughed and prepared to leave the palace. Shangguan Tianqian stood behind him, not moving for a long time. He seemed to have something to say, but he hesitated. Su Yi asked suspiciously, What? Is there something else? After a long while, Shangguan Tianqian finally mustered up his courage and asked, Sovereign, now that you've returned to Spirit Ancient Village, can you tell me if they're doing well? Shangguan Tianqian's sharp eyes began to evade Su Yi's gaze as he waited for him to speak. Thump! At that moment, Su Yi began to feel vexed. He slapped his head and scolded himself for forgetting about this matter. The Spirit Ancient Village was massacred, and everyone was forced to migrate. Now, they were temporarily staying in the barbaric demon forest. Su Yi was vexed. How should he tell him about this? Su Yi was annoyed. His brows furrowed, and Shangguan Tianqian saw it. A trace of panic flashed past his eyes as he took a step forward. A bad atmosphere instantly filled the air between the two. Shangguan Tianqian's eyes twitched. He took a deep breath and repeated, Sovereign, are my mother, Shi Wei and the others doing well in Spirit Ancient Village? After pondering for a while, Su Yi sighed heavily. He looked at the quiet river and decided to tell him everything. The fog was heavy, as if it contained all the joys and sorrows. Su Yi looked into the distance and said in a sorrowful voice, The Spirit Ancient Village was destroyed by a few strong cultivators. The demon venerable was destroyed, and the family was destroyed. The great elder and village chief grandma were killed. When he heard that his family was destroyed, Shangguan Tianqian's eyes bulged. His face was as white as a sheet of paper, and his body trembled. It was as if his blood essence had been sucked out. The originally handsome man's face was withered. He was in a daze, and his eyes stared blankly at the ground. After a while, he raised his eyes, and as if he had regained his senses, he rushed in front of Su Yi and grabbed Su Yi's arm. He shouted angrily and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Who killed my mother? Tell me which bastard it was. After saying that, Shangguan Tianqian's entire body was like a broken water valve. His anger was like a tidal wave, and he fell to the ground and hammered the ground like a madman. Bang bang! A fierce explosion sounded in the air. Shangguan Tianqian's face was filled with pain, and his sobs resounded through the sky. Mother! Your son is unfilial. How could you let her die? Your son is unfilial. He shook his head continuously, and regret and pain filled the entire lake. With a low sigh, Su Yi's mood fell. His face was bitter and his body was stiff. He stared at Shangguan Tianqian and screamed. Soon, the screams were replaced by silent sobs. The handsome Shangguan Tianqian looked haggard. Fresh blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, and it was a terrifying scarlet color. Coughing heavily, Shangguan Tianqian crawled to his feet. His veins were like little snakes, and his skin was red from agitation. His voice was as hoarse as sandpaper, terrifying. "Faction leader, who killed my mother?" Shangguan Tianqian whispered. Frowning, Su Yi pursed his lips and said softly, "It's the Saint Mountain." There were a few strong cultivators that I have never seen before. I vaguely remember a middle-aged man with a spear and an old man with a machete. These three were the leaders of the group. The Saint Mountain. Shangguan Tianqian's eyes were cold, and he gritted his teeth. Letting out a long sigh, Su Yi wanted to expel all the resentment in his heart. His eyes were bright, and the coldness was oppressive. "So, do you know why I must wash the Saint Mountain with blood? Although the Saint Mountain saved me, he couldn't stop Xing Feng and Xing Yun." Su Yi's eyes were cold. Shangguan Tianqian's lips parted, and he clenched his fists so hard that his joints cracked. He said angrily, "Is it Xing Feng or Xing Yun who came to the spirit ancient village?" Su Yi's eyes flashed with flames, and he said regretfully, "It's Xing Feng who escaped. Now that he has lost half of his leg, he has nowhere to go. He must have gone to the Long family." Suddenly, Su Yi thought of the few strong cultivators' disgusting faces, and he said coldly, "The 9,000-year-old Tian Yao school is destroyed just like that. Without the Long family's instructions, it's impossible. I will definitely find the other two. Catch them in front of village head granny and atone for their sins." Shangguan Tianqian's eyes were bloodshot, and his expression was twisted. His aura was deep and boundless, and a cold calmness appeared on his brows. Shangguan Tianqian naturally believed Su Yi's words. If he didn't meet Su Yi, no one would understand why Su Yi had such hatred. Knowing the truth, Shangguan Tianqian only had endless gratitude and admiration for Su Yi. Shangguan Tianqian said softly. Chapter 2058. Where are Shi Wei and the rest of my clansmen? I want to go back and see them. Now that my mission is complete, I have no other wishes. I only want to kill my enemies and avenge my mother and my clansmen. Hearing Shangguan Tianqian's words, Su Yi's frown deepened as he pondered for a moment. After a few breaths of time, Su Yi patted Shangguan Tianqian's shoulder as if relieved of a heavy burden. "Fine. I finally know why Master asked you to send me off. This time, I must leave the palace." With a steely gaze, Su Yi tapped Shangguan Tianqian's forehead with his index finger, and a piece of regional information entered his mind. Just in case, Su Yi used the secret technique of the art of driving the heavens to transmit information about Ling Gu's descendants in Azure Water City. Apart from the soul-searching secret technique, there was no risk of the information being leaked. Narrowing his eyes, Shangguan Tianqian received the news, and a cold light shot out from his eyes as an intimidating aura surged out. Seeing the impatient Shangguan Tianqian, Su Yi took out the family token that Qi Nu had given him and handed it to Shangguan Tianqian. "Go quickly. They must be anxious from thinking about it. I have a 5-year agreement with the Azure Water City Lord, and there is still a year left. If you enter the city, take this item with you. They are also part of my Overlord Legion, and you must lead Shi Wei and the others to become stronger quickly." When Shangguan Tianqian heard Shangguan Shi Wei's name, his eyes lit up, and a glimmer of hope appeared in the depths of his sorrowful eyes. Before leaving, Su Yi repeatedly warned Shangguan Tianqian not to make any big movements after receiving Shangguan Shi Wei. Now that the Long family was eyeing them covetously, other than the Long family, the unknown spear-wielding middle-aged man and the scimitar-wielding elder were still in the dark. If the heavenly demon's remains were discovered, it was very likely that the last bit of light in this world would be extinguished. Looking at Shangguan Tianqian's figure gradually disappearing into the thin morning mist, Su Yi looked in the right direction, and the key beneath his feet rose as he headed out of the palace. His gaze was firm and resolute. Looking back at the palace on the mountain, Su Yi muttered to himself, I will definitely come back. Ruashi, Xiaoman, wait for me. In the next second, Su Yi's figure disappeared into the dense teleportation array, and the space rippled with the wind. In the Brahma Dragon's celestial palace, the statues and paintings were incomparably exquisite. Its huge body hovered in the sky like a primordial golden dragon that was roaring proudly in hibernation, overlooking the world. The 5 great clans each had their own method of isolating the mainland. All of them could create a small world in the sky barbarian mainland. The aristocratic families could come into contact with the heaven barbarians at any time, but they would never be discovered by the heaven barbarians. At this moment, the dragon-bodied heavenly palace was shining with golden light like a warship. It had a dignified appearance and a powerful aura. The sound of space being torn apart suddenly rang out in the depths of the void at the stern of the ship. Chi-La. The huge shockwave caused the patrolling Long family soldiers to be extremely shocked, and they quickly rushed to the stern of the ship to gather. Who is it? A man who looked like a soldier armed with a golden spear pointed a golden whip at the sky, leaving only his valiant and heroic appearance. If the small world was invaded, it must be by a super-strong person. Immediately, the dozens of Long family soldiers who were lined up neatly behind him looked solemn and ready for battle. They were all aiming at the crack in the sky. In the depths of the void, the crack in the space, which was wrapped in bright silver arcs, instantly expanded to both sides. In the pitch-black space cave, a bloody figure was thrown out of the cave with a loud bang. Gulp! The crack expanded, and a naked old man with a face full of blood fell straight from the sky like a bird with broken wings. When the captain saw this, he panicked and was stunned. In an instant, he determined that this person had lost consciousness. With a heavy thud, the old man had already fallen onto the golden ground of the heavenly palace. A few drops of blood flew into the air, and the dense dragon light flickered endlessly. "Carry that person over here!" The captain shouted and ordered his subordinate. "Everyone, move aside!" The captain shouted. With his powerful cultivation base at the 6th level origin ancestor stage, he forcefully pushed everyone present aside and made a path for him. Looking down, the captain's arrogant expression changed drastically when he saw the old man's blood-covered face. "I want to see the dragon god." After saying that, the old man's eyes lost focus again. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted again. The left half of the old man's leg that was lying on the ground had already disappeared. His tattered pants fluttered terrifyingly like a torn banner. A bloody mist filled the air, and the stench of blood attracted everyone's attention. With grave expressions, the soldiers whispered, "The dragon god hasn't returned yet. What should we do?" The soldiers at the side gasped as they looked at the old man lying on the ground. He had an extraordinary background, and his cultivation base was even more unfathomable. For him to be so severely injured, he must have experienced a great change. "Captain Longya, who is this person?" a brave soldier asked solemnly. The captain of the patrol rolled his eyes and withdrew his gaze. The helmet with the fierce dragon head carved on his head slowly took off. With a flash of golden light, a valiant and heroic face was revealed before everyone. Latest GD chapter section, previous 0F gulp. So beautiful! Immediately, everyone's gaze was attracted by this wild but extremely delicate face. The blazing atmosphere instantly ignited the gazes of all the males. "You talk too much. Is the Long family's matter something you can ask just because you want to?" Longya narrowed her cold eyes and swept her fierce gaze across the scene. Many of the Long family's soldiers with lower cultivation base consciously lowered their heads. Their eyes trembled. However, there were even more bold veterans who were admiring the beautiful scenery from the corner of their eyes. This captain named Longya had a head of thick golden wavy hair. The moment she took off her helmet, it was like a waterfall flowing backwards. She was naturally charming. Her figure was even more alluring. Her waist was comparable to a water snake with a little bit of barbaric muscle. Coupled with a pair of slender and flawless long legs, it was simply a killing weapon. One more look and it would be easy to have a nosebleed. Her eyes shone with a cold light. Her nose bridge was tall and slender, and there was a condescending coldness in her delicate face. It was obvious that Longya had gotten used to being stared at by men. "All of you, scram to the back!" Longya's cold voice quickly spread, and the sound of people retreating resounded in the air. He was actually injured to this extent. Longya frowned and muttered softly. Longya bent down and the faint golden dragon patterns around her filled the air. Her snow-white face and neck were shrouded in golden radiance. She tilted her head and carefully examined the old man's injuries. "I'm so lucky to be able to see Captain Longya's true face on the first day I joined the Long Ben Guards." Ever since young Master Long Tsang returned from Heavenly Wind, Captain Longya had the same expression almost every day. "She was extremely harsh on our training. Sigh. It's rare to have such good fortune today." Chapter 2059. It's nothing. As long as I can see Captain Longya every day, it's worth it even if I die. Bah! The recruits behind him whispered to each other and exchanged lewd glances. One of the Long family's soldiers, who was obviously older, reminded him sternly with a calm expression. "All of you, put away those dirty thoughts in your hearts. Captain Longya is not an idiot. Besides, she's Elder Long Kuei's granddaughter. You little loaches, do you want your lives or your happiness?" The group of dozens of people instantly quieted down. After hearing the veteran's words, even the patrolling soldiers standing at the front narrowed their eyes. Their gazes subconsciously turned back, filled with reverence and fear. Anyone who had stayed in the Long family knew Elder Long Kuei's position in the Long family. Not only was he the young palace Master Long Tsang's tutor, but he was also the most powerful person in the Long family other than the old monsters in the Elder Long Association. Of course, no one in the Long family could compare to the Dragon God. No one could be more powerful than the Dragon God. In the hearts of the Long family disciples, the Dragon God was the leader of the Long family and the ruler of the entire Sky Barbarian continent. No one dared to defy the Dragon God's power. Their throats rolled rapidly. Everyone's eyes quickly changed from burning desire to trembling in fear. Their expressions became serious, and they no longer dared to show any wretched or filthy expressions. In just a few breaths of time, Longya waved her beautiful arm and ordered, "Carry them to the secret dragon room and quickly invite young Master Long Tsang over." The secret dragon room was an important meeting place in the Heavenly Palace. Usually, the discussions here were top secrets of the Brahma Dragon's celestial palace. At this moment, in the not-so-spacious room, dragons flying in the sky were carved on the walls and pillars. They were lifelike and majestic. On the wall in front of them was a large golden dragon flickering in the clouds. It was as fast as lightning and majestic. It had long fangs and claws, and golden light spewed out of its mouth, as if it could destroy thousands of lives in the world. It was sacred and domineering. The huge front claws, together with the shining dragon scale armor, were gorgeous and showed the nobility and pride of the golden dragon in the sky. Only Long Tsang and Longya were in the room. Long Tsang sat at the head of the table, while Longya sat to the west. After 4 months of recovery, Long Tsang could now walk. However, his face was still pale. His lips and teeth were sickly and his eye sockets were sunken. After returning, Long Tsang no longer had the lofty spirit and ambition he had when he participated in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. He also no longer had the arrogance he had when he looked down on the world and was determined to reach the top. Cough, cough. Long Tsang kept coughing. He had used too much strength, and the sound of his heart and lungs colliding could be heard in the air. Longya, who was sitting at the side, had a cold look in her eyes. In fact, there was anger hidden in the depths of her eyes. Longya, who was sitting on the east side, looked at the sickly Long Tsang, and her tone instantly became much gentler. She looked up and asked, "Is young Palace Master all right? I still have a few bottles of earth-grade medicinal pills. I'll get someone to send them over to you later." Long Tsang's eyebrows twitched as if he didn't hear him. The anger and humiliation of being looked down upon surged to the corner of his eyebrows. "Are you pitying me or laughing at me?" Long Tsang glared fiercely at Longya. The latter's beautiful eyelashes suddenly drooped as if she had done something wrong. "I didn't mean that. I'm just worried about your health," Longya said timidly. The cold arrogance in front of the soldiers suddenly disappeared. In the Brahma Dragon Celestial Palace, everyone knew that Longya worshipped the strong and even more so, the geniuses. Long Tsang was the #1 person in the younger generation of the Long family. In Longya's heart, he was naturally a playboy and the best choice for her husband. Even though Longya was 4 years older than the 18-year-old Long Tsang, she didn't think that there was anyone in the Long family who could compete with her. Original OS version J0-inch. Long Tsang snorted heavily and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His cold gaze moved from Longya to Elder Xingfeng, who was lying on the ground. Long Tsang narrowed his eyes and sized up Xingfeng, who was lying on the stretcher on the verge of death. He frowned and asked, "What happened? Why did he come back? Did he expose himself?" Longya nodded. She regained her serious expression and said softly, "In this holy mountain competition, all the forces we planted over the years were wiped out. Even in the Long family, Xingfeng is a powerful existence. The secret agent of the Long family who came back reported that Yuqi Changfeng, Sheng Hua, Xing Qing, and Xing Yun are all dead." Hearing this, Long Tsang's expression suddenly turned ugly. His facial features twisted together and became extremely ferocious. He cried out involuntarily, "How could this be? Who in the Sky Barbarian realm has this ability?" Longya took a deep breath. Her expression was also cold and resentful. She said coldly, "The secret agent of the Long family was worried that he would be exposed, so he came back first. That's all he brought back. However, he saw someone in the competition." Long Tsang's gaze quickly fluctuated. His knuckles that were holding the corner of the table started to turn purple. He asked coldly, "Who? Tell me." Bang! The door of the secret dragon room instantly opened. A surge of golden dragon aura surged from outside like a gust of wind. Spatial ripples instantly filled the entire secret dragon room with a huge amount of energy. "Grandfather!" Longya immediately smiled and stood up. Her gaze landed on the old figure in the golden storm. In the storm, a pair of wrinkled eyes were filled with anger. It was the Long family's elder, Long Kuei. Long Kuei shook his purple robe and glanced at the elder of Xingfeng lying on the ground. An undetectable shock flashed across the corner of his eyes. "Young Palace Master, it's Su Yi." The grand competition of Xingfeng was ruined by Su Yi. All the plans of the Long family have been disrupted. Long Kuei's mouth twitched. He glanced at Long Tsang from the corner of his eyes. Longya, who was still happy because of Long Kuei's arrival, instantly turned gloomy. She opened her mouth slightly and said in a low voice, "Su Yi? Is it the person that the young palace master injured in the Heavenly Wind ranking battle?" "Su Yi! Su Yi! What a good Su Yi!" With a loud bang, the corner of the table under Long Tsang's palm immediately turned into powder. Bang! The sound rumbled non-stop. The dust suddenly floated in the air and turned into powder under the huge energy of the spatial ripples. A mouthful of blood spurted out from Long Tsang's mouth. He was furious. Long Kuei and Longya hurried forward. The energy in Long Kuei's hand was like a pillar, gently flowing into Long Tsang's body. After a long while, Long Tsang gradually calmed down. His deep aura was boundless. He said coldly, "Where is he now? Why haven't you captured him yet?" Long Kuei shook his head and looked at Long Tsang. He was a little disappointed that the latter was blinded by anger. He said seriously, "The dragon god has ordered that Su-yi is a very important chess piece. He is not to be touched unless there is no other way, and there is someone in the Long family who is protecting him." Long Tsang and Long Ye exchanged a look. Shock and horror flooded their eyes. Other than the dragon god, who else in the Long family had such power? Is it the old man? He didn't even save me. Why did he protect that bastard? Long Tsang was hysterical as he questioned Long Kuei with a roar. Chapter 2060. Long Kuei's face darkened. He pressed his palm against Long Tsang's body to calm him down. After a while, he turned to Long Tsang and scolded, "The old man and the Long family have always been partners. Even the dragon god doesn't dare to cross the line. Young palace master, don't you think you've crossed the line?" Long Tsang raised his head and sneered. He raised his eyebrows and said, "All right, go on." He ruined the grand competition of the Holy Mountain, and the Long family didn't do anything about it? Long Kuei heaved a sigh of relief. He sorted out his thoughts and walked to Long Ye. Su-yi is too mysterious. The dragon god is very interested in him. After he disappeared from the ranking competition, the dragon god suspected that he would come into contact with the Duanmu Qintian. But according to the Long family's secret envoys and the enchantment, there is no trace of the Duanmu Qintian. So before we find the Duanmu Qintian that the old man needs, nothing can happen to Su-yi. Unless there is no other choice. Long Tsang stood there in a daze. He didn't expect his father and the old man to think so highly of the insignificant ant that he disdained. He, who had been talented since he was young, could only hide in the Sky Palace like a cripple. Thinking of this, Long Tsang was even angrier. He said coldly, "Father is still in the Chaos region. Does he know everything?" Long Kuei nodded and glanced at Long Ye, indicating for her to wake Xingfeng up. Long Kuei walked forward and said earnestly, "The dragon god naturally knows. He asked me to tell you that the Long family has two things to do. First, find the other bloodline of the Long family and open the Golden Dragon's secret realm. Second, find the Duanmu Qintian. If we find the Duanmu Qintian, we can find the Golden Heavenly Stone. If the old man is happy, he will help the Long family prosper again. By then, the diluted bloodline will be nothing to be afraid of." Long Tsang fell silent when he heard that. Long Kuei patted his shoulder and comforted Long Tsang. "Young palace master, don't be impatient. You have to be patient to achieve great things." At this time, a painful cry came from below and the smell of blood spread again. Xingfeng, who had just woken up, clutched his missing left leg and howled in pain. His withered face wrinkled up in grief. "Stop shouting. What happened on the sacred mountain?" Long Kuei sneered. Enduring the pain in his heart, Xingfeng briefly described the process of the large competition, which was basically the same as the information reported by the Long family's secret envoy. The three of them looked at each other and understood what was going on. Xingfeng's face was filled with tears as he begged, his eyes clouded by blood. "Young palace master, Elder Long Kuei, you have to save me. The Holy Mountain was harmed by Su-yi, that dog bastard. We have to take revenge." Long Kuei sneered as he slowly walked towards Xingfeng. Xingfeng's eyes narrowed as a chill ran down his spine. Long Kuei shrugged as he looked at Xingfeng, who was now like a cripple, and said, "Save you? In order to arrange for you, the Long family spent so much effort. Now, it was all overturned by a little bastard? Even if I avenge you and let you regain control of the sacred mountain, will you still have any prestige left?" Suddenly, Xingfeng's face turned ashen as his desperate eyes fell on the golden dragon on the wall. He sneered, "Are we just going to let it go? What else can we do? What do you want?" Long Tsang's eyes were equally cold. After confirming the three's attitude, Xingfeng smiled bitterly and nodded bitterly. "Fine. Since the Long family is like this, it seems this one doesn't need to stay any longer. Wait. Long Kue looked at Elder Xing Feng, who was about to turn around and crawl out, his indifferent words quietly leaving behind. Xing Feng turned around, but Long Kue's next sentence made him even more disappointed. Don't go, leave your other leg and you'll become fertilizer for the Long family. While speaking, Long Kue approached step by step, light yellow dragon marks spreading out from his body. He pushed his hands forward, and a vast dragon might surged out from between them. Suddenly, Xing Feng's eyes narrowed as half of his body slid on the ground, leaving a long bloody trail as his body twitched crazily. Raising his dirty arms in front of him, Xing Feng anxiously said, "Wait, Elder. I have Su Yi's secret, I can exchange it. Yes, I have a big secret. I can exchange it for my life. I can exchange it for my life." His pleading eyes quickly swept back and forth between the three, the corners of Xing Feng's mouth twitching uncontrollably due to fear. Long Kue sneered, lifting his chin with his snow-white beard, and said with interest, "Let's hear it." Overjoyed, Xing Feng changed his posture and knelt at Long Kue's feet like a stray dog, trembling as he said, "Su Yi has a sword in his hand. It's our Holy Mountain's Holy Monarch Emperor sword." "So what?" Long Tsang frowned, puzzled. Xing Feng's body trembled, and his dry lips began to stutter as he explained intermittently. "The Holy Monarch Emperor sword hides our Holy Mountain's Holy Monarch Chi. It's the Holy Mountain's treasure, but young Palace Master and Elder don't know. The Holy Monarch Emperor sword is the Heavenly Wind Divine sword. The first Holy Monarch seized the instructions from the Tian Yao school and plundered it. With this sword, the Holy Mountain soared for nearly 10,000 years." As soon as he said this, the three's expressions changed. Long Kue suddenly lifted Xing Feng up and said in a low voice, "You mean, Su Yi is the heavenly demon's remnant." Long Kue's aura was majestic, and the heavily injured Xing Feng could not hold on. His face was pale as he nodded frantically. That day, the heavenly demon's remnant swore to escort a young man out of the spirit ancient village. Now that I think about it, it's Su Yi without a doubt. After hearing this, Long Kue's body trembled, and he fell into deep thought. Only Xing Feng's heavy breathing could be heard in the secret dragon room. So it's true. Long Kue raised his eyes, and his expression became excited again. He looked at Xing Feng, who was full of anticipation, and continued, "What's the bigger secret? Say it and I'll spare your life." The three fixed their eyes on Xing Feng at the same time. Su Yi's matter was already shocking enough. Could there be something even more terrifying? Xing Feng smiled. Seeing that his life was saved, he lowered his voice and said mysteriously, "Lu Ruashi has the rainbow exquisite divine body. Are you sure?" Long Kue roared, looking shocked. He squatted down and listened carefully to Xing Feng's words. After a while, Long Kue turned around and laughed loudly. "Congratulations, young palace master, your injuries will be healed soon. The rainbow exquisite divine body is an ancient divine body, and its heart is a healing divine medicine. Not only will you be healed, but you will also surpass your past and become a supreme miracle." HD 0 Long Tsang, who was experienced and knowledgeable, naturally knew. Immediately, his face was filled with excitement, and he almost stood up. Then, he sat down again, his eyes shining brightly, and he remained silent. "What's wrong?" Long Ye asked, her face full of concern. Looking at the change in Long Tsang's mood, Long Kue also remembered that there was an old man at home who was also waiting for the rainbow exquisite divine body. Long Kue walked to Long Tsang's side and said solemnly, "Now that things have come to this, I can only go back and report to Lord Dragon God first. As for who this exquisite egg should be given to, I can only ask Dragon God to step forward. I will also fight for young Palace Master. The most important thing now is how to get the rainbow exquisite divine body." Chapter 2061. Working hard to update, please refresh later. This chapter is working hard to update, please refresh later. Handsome man and beautiful woman, can you register as a member first? If you register as a member, you can use the bookmark function on the bookshelf. If this chapter is about the author asking for votes, please skip it and continue to the next chapter. Please save this page first so you can read it later. Otherwise, you won't be able to find this chapter later. Recommended author: Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty. Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty. Summary. He was just a small servant, but he was involved in an ancient secret. A bizarre murder case had sent an affectionate young miss and a cold and arrogant little maid to him. Were they really innocent people who were involved in this? West Lake Broken Bridge, strange and treacherous. Love is tied by a thread. The truth is just inches away. Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty. Forwarding address /33xs/317/553/33xs/317/553/ Content Trial Reading Chapter 001. Returning to Home in Glory. Southern Song Dynasty, Qi Kingdom, Qiantang, Xiling Bridge. The moon hung high in the sky and the night fog curled up on the road. An oil wall carriage approached from afar, moving lightly on a small road in the countryside of Jiangnan. There was a pair of lanterns in front of the carriage. As the carriage bumped along with the rolling wheels, the delicate and beautiful Su character on the lanterns swayed. The carriage was draped with a light veil, and a driver sat in front of the carriage holding the reins. The moonlight was like water, illuminating the ground. More importantly, he was already familiar with this road. Even with his eyes closed, he could walk on it like it was flat ground. So, the night did not affect the speed of the carriage at all. The veil moved with the wind, occasionally revealing three beautiful figures in the carriage. In the middle was a girl in a red dress. Her hair was cloudy and her steps were light. Looking behind her, one could see her slender neck like an elegant swan. The girl on the left was white and the girl on the right was green. Judging from her clothes and hairstyle, she was still dressed like a young girl. Obviously, she was the servant of the beauty in the middle. But seeing the three of them sitting together, traveling under the moonlight, and their crisp laughter, it was obvious that they were like sisters. The girl in the middle was Qiantang's #1 dancer, Su Yaoyao. The girls in white and green were her maids, Bai Su and Qing Ting. The three ladies were traveling at night to meet with young Master Wan, an official's family. Tonight, young Master Wan had set up a banquet and invited all the local talents and beauties. First, domain name, please remember _3. Suddenly, the frosty night sky changed from a cold pale white to a golden light, as if a sun that had been sealed for 10,000 years had suddenly broken free from its shackles and leaped into the sky. The coachman, old Huang, who was driving the carriage, suddenly couldn't see anything. In a panic, he hurriedly pulled on the reins. The two horses were abruptly reined in by him and stood up on their hind legs. Their four big hooves heavily smashed onto the ground with a "paw" sound, abruptly stopping the carriage. "Io!" The three girls in the carriage were caught off guard and almost fell out of the carriage because of the sudden stop. Fortunately, the three of them were squeezed together. Although the three girls' bodies were light, how wide could an oil wall carriage be? Therefore, they didn't roll out of the carriage. If they fell and messed up their hair, it would be fine. But if they fell and hit the ground with their faces, it would ruin their beautiful faces. "Old Huang, what's going on?" Su Yaoyao was a little angry. She covered her face with her hand and blocked the strong light. She immediately lifted the curtain, bent over, and stood on the carriage. Bai Su and Qing Ting followed. The three of them stood at the front of the carriage and looked up at the sky. As soon as they saw the strange scene in the sky, they were stunned. He saw a huge golden wheel-like object that looked like a heavenly king was hovering in the air. The light that was as bright as the sun was radiating from it. First, domain name, please remember. It swayed in the air as though it couldn't support itself. All of a sudden, the golden wheel-like object exploded. The huge shockwave was like ripples that quickly spread in all directions. The coachman, old Huang, cried out in surprise. He rolled off the carriage like a lazy donkey and dove under the carriage. However, Su Yaoyao, Bai Su, and Qing Ting couldn't avoid it in time. The golden light passed through their bodies. The three beautiful girls swayed and fell softly to the ground. The golden light disappeared, and so did the golden wheel in the sky. A few places in the distance were on fire and smoke rose. The night returned to its cold state as the light quietly shone on the three beautiful bodies. The night dew was sparkling and translucent. The orchid dew was like a crying eye. The grass was like a carpet, the pine trees were like a cover, and the path was silent. The oily wagon stood there, and the two horses snorted blankly, as if nothing had happened. Time flew by. 500 years later, the moon was high in the sky and the lanterns were lit. It was a lively time for Qinhuai. Beside the peach leaf ferry, a young man waved a small fan and slowly walked over. Many passers-by on the road would greet him warmly, "Brother Han." The young man would return their greetings with a smile and was very polite. Brother Han was dressed in a round-neck robe with a leather belt around his waist. He wore a pair of legless headdress and a beautiful rose by his temples. It complemented his handsome face and made him look a little devilish. However, there was nothing he could do. This was the custom of the Song dynasty. From the emperor to the commoners, as long as they were men, they liked to wear flowers. First, the young man in front of him was tall and handsome. Even when he wasn't smiling, there was a slight smile on his face. It was slightly upturned and very likable. His pair of black and shiny eyebrows made his eyes look especially spirited and lively. It was as if he could speak as he looked around. He was different from those men who were covered in grease and insisted on wearing flowers. When young ladies and young wives saw him, they couldn't help but take a few more glances. This person's name was Yang Han. 3 days ago, he was a member of the Nanjing Street Department of the Song dynasty. The street department was in charge of the city streets. Its functions and status were similar to the urban management of the later generations. However, the urban management of the Song dynasty had many functions. It was almost a combination of policing, environmental protection, taxation, fire control, price inspection, industrial and commercial law enforcement, greening and cleaning, and dealing with illegal road occupation. Those who could do this were either a scoundrel like Nyo Air, who could control people, or a slick person who knew how to steer according to the wind. However, when he really had to fight with people, he had to be a good fighter. Not only could he bend and stretch, but he also had to be soft and hard. Yang Han belonged to the latter. He was eloquent, alert, and had good martial arts. Although he was a commoner at the bottom of society, the 300 years of the Song dynasty were the best and wealthiest dynasty among all the dynasties. If you didn't have the ambition to become a marquis or conquer the world, you just wanted to be a commoner. Or if you only had the ability to be a commoner, then you were born in the Song dynasty. You had cultivated merit for several generations. In other dynasties, the lives of commoners were far inferior. Therefore, Yang Han, a little urban management of the Song dynasty's Jiankang city, lived a very interesting life. Unfortunately, 3 days ago, he lost this fat job. It wasn't that Yang Han was impartial in his enforcement of the law and offended a big shot. It wasn't that he met a scoundrel with a strong background and couldn't continue working. It was because the head of the street department, Master Li, liked him and wanted to marry his daughter to him. The head of the department was equivalent to the captain of the urban management team. He was a member of the Yamen, and people like Yang Han were all recruited by the head of the department. Therefore, to be precise, Yang Han was the head of the department. To be able to become the son-in-law of the head of the department, there should be smoke rising from his ancestors' graves. However, Yang Han was also a smooth and slick character. He was very familiar with the city's fox and rat society in Jiankong City. His eyes and ears were very well informed. He knew the head of the department's precious daughter better than the head of the department himself. How could he agree? Master Li's daughter was called Li Xiu. She was born beautiful, but she wasn't very restrained in the imperial examination. According to the news that Yang Han heard, this Miss Li had several lovers. She even had an abortion for one of her recent lovers, a scholar named Mu Si. Until now, the two of them were still hooking up with each other, and their relationship was unclear. As the saying goes, it's better to marry a prostitute and live a good life than to marry a red apricot over the wall. Yang Han was also an ambitious man. He didn't want to be a scapegoat for that surnamed Mu and be criticized behind his back. Therefore, Yang Han used all his means and didn't hesitate to sully himself. He refused to give in no matter what. But this Master Li didn't know what was wrong with his brain. He didn't understand the principle that a forcefully twisted melon won't be sweet. He actually threatened to resign from his job. Yang Han naturally refused to give in, so he lost his job. These 2 days, when people on the street mentioned the missing Yang Han, many people couldn't help but sigh. They felt sorry for him, but they didn't expect that he would show up this evening. There was a restaurant next to Tao Yidu. Yang Han walked in, picked a table, and sat down. He raised his voice and said, "Shopkeeper, a bowl of duck blood and vermicelli soup, a tray of crab roe steamed buns, and a jiao of wine." When Miss Du, who was wearing an apron, saw Yang Han, she was happy. Girls love pretty boys. Who didn't love to see a handsome young man? She and her father took care of this shop. Every time Yang Han came, the duck blood and vermicelli soup would be full of ingredient. They were even willing to put a spoonful of pepper for him. She immediately agreed in a crisp voice and got busy. Yang Han turned his head and saw Old Fan passing by with a load. He hurriedly shouted, "Hey! Old Fan, come in, come in. Cut me half a tail of mutton and a set of pig pancreas." Old Fan was a person who carried a load and sold cooked food. Yang Han was familiar with him. When he heard him call, he hurriedly mustered up his courage and entered the shop. He put down the carrying pole and the chopping board on Yang Han's table. He picked up a piece of mutton and began to cut it. As he cut, he smiled and said, "Brother Han, you're looking for a better job. Where are you getting rich now?" Yang Han was waiting for him to say this. He arrogantly glanced around. Seeing that everyone was listening attentively, he smiled reservedly. Not really, not really. It's just that I'm indebted to the magistrate of Jiankong Prefecture, Master Li, for his appreciation. Now I'm a small steward in the Li estate." Old Fan was shocked. He exclaimed, "Oh, that's amazing! A 7th-ranked official in front of the Prime Minister's door. Brother Han, now that you're a steward in the magistrate's Li estate, I'm afraid your status won't be lower than head Li's, right?" Yang Han smiled faintly. It wasn't good for him to flatter himself, but he didn't deny it either. It was clear that he tacitly agreed with Old Fan's words. Originally, why else would he be dressed like a flower with a hairpin and a sachet tied to his waist? Why else would he appear in the area he was previously in charge of? He was returning home in silken robes. Southern Song Chronicles forwarding address /33XS/317/553/33XS/317/553/. Chapter 2062. Working hard to update, please refresh later. This chapter is working hard to update, please refresh later. Handsome man and beautiful woman, can you register as a member first? If you register as a member, you can use the bookmark function on the bookshelf. If this chapter is about the author asking for votes, please skip it and continue to the next chapter. Please save this page first so you can read it later. Otherwise, you won't be able to find this chapter later. Recommended author: Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty. Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty. Summary. He was just a small servant, but he was involved in an ancient secret. A bizarre murder case had sent an affectionate young miss and a cold and arrogant little maid to him. Were they really innocent people who were involved in this? West Lake Broken Bridge, strange and treacherous. Fate linked by a thread. The truth was just inches away. Strange Stories of the Southern Song Dynasty. Forwarding address /33XS/3175553//33XS/3175553/ Content Trial Reading Chapter 001 Returning Home in Glory. The Southern Song Dynasty, Qi Kingdom, Qiantang, Shieling Bridge. The moon hung high in the sky and the night fog curled up on the road. An oil wall carriage approached from afar, moving lightly on a small road in Jiangnan's countryside. A pair of lanterns hung in front of the carriage. As the carriage bumped along with the rolling wheels, the delicate and beautiful Su character on the lanterns swayed. The carriage was draped with a light veil, and a driver sat in front of the carriage holding the reins. The moonlight was like water, illuminating the ground. More importantly, he was already familiar with this road. Even with his eyes closed, he could walk on it like it was flat ground. So, the night did not affect the speed of the carriage at all. The veil moved with the wind, occasionally revealing three beautiful figures in the carriage. In the middle was a girl in a red dress. Her hair was cloudy and her steps were light. Looking behind her, one could see her slender neck like an elegant swan. The girl on the left was white and the girl on the right was green. Based on her clothes and hairstyle, she was still dressed as a young girl. Obviously, she was the servant of the beauty in the middle. But seeing the three of them sitting together, traveling under the moonlight, and their crisp laughter, it was obvious that they were as close as sisters. Domain name, please remember _3. The girl in the middle was Qiantang's #1 dancer, Su Yaoyao. The girls in white and green were her maids, by Su and Qing Ting. The three ladies were traveling at night to meet with young Master Wan, an official's family. Tonight, young Master Wan had set up a banquet and invited all the local talents and beauties. First, domain name, please remember _3. Suddenly, the frosty night sky changed from a cold pale white to a golden light, as if a sun that had been sealed for 10,000 years had suddenly broken free from its shackles and leaped into the sky. The coachman, old Huang, who was driving the carriage, suddenly couldn't see anything. In a panic, he hurriedly pulled on the reins. The two horses were abruptly reined in by him, and stood up on their hind legs. Their four big hooves heavily smashed onto the ground with a "paw" sound, abruptly stopping the carriage. "Io!" The three girls in the carriage were caught off guard, and almost fell out of the carriage because of the sudden stop. Fortunately, the three of them were squeezed together. Although the three girls' bodies were light, how wide could an oil wall carriage be? Therefore, they didn't roll out of the carriage. If they fell and messed up their hair, it would be fine, but if they fell and hit the ground with their faces, it would ruin their beautiful faces. First, domain name, Old Huang, what's going on? Su Yaoyao was a little angry. She covered her face with her hand and blocked the strong light. She immediately lifted the curtain, bent over, and stood on the carriage. Bai Su and Qing Ting followed. The three of them stood at the front of the carriage and looked up at the sky. When they saw the strange scene in the sky, they were immediately stunned. He saw a huge golden wheel-like object that looked like a heavenly king was hovering in the air. The light that was as bright as the sun was radiating from it. It swayed in the air, seemingly unable to support itself. All of a sudden, the golden wheel-like object exploded. The huge shockwave was like ripples that quickly spread in all directions. The coachman, Old Huang, cried out in surprise. He rolled off the carriage like a lazy donkey and dove into the bottom of the carriage. However, Su Yaoyao, Bai Su, and Qing Ting couldn't avoid it in time. The golden light passed through their bodies. The three beautiful girls swayed and fell to the ground. The golden light disappeared, and so did the golden wheel in the sky. A few places in the distance were set on fire and smoke rose. The night returned to its cold state and quietly shone on the three beautiful bodies. The night dew was sparkling and translucent. The orchid dew was like a crying eye. The grass was like a carpet, the pine trees were like a cover, and the path was silent. The oily wagon stood there, and the two horses snorted blankly, as if nothing had happened. Time flew by. 500 years later, the moon was high in the sky and the lanterns were lit. It was a lively time in Qinhuai. Beside the peach leaf ferry, a young man waved a small fan and walked over slowly. Many passers-by on the road would greet him warmly, "Brother Han." The young man would return their greetings with a smile and was very polite. Translator, Lonely Tree Editor, Millman 97. Brother Han was dressed in a round-necked robe with a leather belt around his waist. He wore a pair of legless headdress and a beautiful rose by his temples. It complemented his handsome face and made him look a little seductive. However, there was no helping it. This was the custom of the Song dynasty. From the emperor to the commoners, as long as they were men, they liked to wear flowers. The young man in front of him was tall and handsome. Even when he wasn't smiling, there was a hint of a smile on his lips. It was slightly upturned and very likable. His pair of black and shiny eyebrows made his eyes look especially spirited and lively. It was as if he could speak as he looked around. He was different from those men who were covered in grease and insisted on wearing flowers. When young ladies and young wives saw him, they couldn't help but take a few more glances. This person's name was Yang Han. 3 days ago, he was a member of the Nanjing Street Department of the Song dynasty. The street department was in charge of the city streets. Its functions and status were similar to the urban management of the later generations. However, the urban management of the Song dynasty had many functions. It was almost a combination of policing, environmental protection, taxation, fire control, price inspection, industrial and commercial law enforcement, greening and cleaning, and dealing with illegal road occupation. Those who could do this were either a scoundrel like Nyo Air, who could control people, or a slick person who knew how to steer according to the wind. However, when he really had to fight with people, he had to be a good fighter. Not only could he bend and stretch, but he also had to be soft and hard. Yang Han belonged to the latter. He was eloquent, alert, and had good martial arts. Although he was a commoner at the bottom of society, the 300 years of the Song dynasty were the best and wealthiest dynasty among all the dynasties. If you didn't have the ambition to become a marquis or conquer the world, you just wanted to be a commoner. Or if you only had the ability to be a commoner, then you were born in the Song dynasty and had cultivated merit for several generations. In other dynasties, the lives of commoners were far inferior. Therefore, Yang Han, a little urban management of the Song dynasty's Jiankong city, lived a very interesting life. Unfortunately, 3 days ago, he lost this fat job. It wasn't that Yang Han was impartial in his enforcement of the law and offended a big shot. It wasn't that he met a scoundrel with a strong background and couldn't continue working. It was because the head of the street department, Master Li, liked him and wanted to marry his daughter to him. The head of the department was equivalent to the captain of the urban management team. He was a member of the Yamen, and people like Yang Han were all recruited by the head of the department. Therefore, to be precise, Yang Han was the head of the department. To be able to become the son-in-law of the head of the department, there should be smoke rising from his ancestors' graves. However, Yang Han was also a smooth and slick character. He was very familiar with the city's fox and rat society in Jiankong City and was very well informed. He knew the head of the department's treasured daughter better than the head of the department himself, so how could he agree? Master Li's daughter was called Li Xiu. She was born beautiful, but she was not very restrained in the imperial examination. According to the news that Yang Han heard, this Miss Li had several lovers. She even had an abortion for one of her recent lovers, a scholar named Mu Si. Until now, the two of them were still hooking up with each other, and their relationship was unclear. As the saying goes, one would rather marry a prostitute and live a good life than marry a red apricot over the wall. Yang Han was also an ambitious man. He wouldn't be a scapegoat for that surnamed Mu and be criticized behind his back. Therefore, Yang Han used all his means and didn't hesitate to sully himself. He refused to give in no matter what. However, he didn't know what was wrong with this Master Li's brain. He didn't understand the principle that a forcefully twisted melon wouldn't be sweet. He actually threatened to resign from his job. Yang Han naturally refused to give in, so he lost his job. In the past 2 days, when people on the street mentioned the missing Yang Han, many people couldn't help but sigh, feeling sorry for him. They didn't expect that he would show up this evening. There was a restaurant next to Tao Yidu. Yang Han walked in, picked a table, and sat down. He raised his voice and said, "Shopkeeper, a bowl of duck blood and vermicelli soup, a tray of crab roe buns, and a jiao of wine." When Miss Du, who was wearing an apron, saw it was Yang Han, she was delighted. Girls love pretty boys. Who didn't love to see a handsome young man? She and her father took care of this shop. Every time Yang Han came, the duck blood and vermicelli soup would be full of ingredient. They were even willing to put a spoonful of pepper for him. She immediately agreed in a crisp voice and got busy. Yang Han turned his head and saw Old Fan passing by with a load. He hurriedly shouted, "Hey! Old Fan, come in, come in. Cut me half a tail of mutton and a set of pig pancreas." Old Fan was a person who carried a load and sold cooked food. Yang Han was familiar with him. When he heard him call, he hurriedly mustered up his courage and entered the shop. He put down the carrying pole and the chopping board on Yang Han's table. He picked up a piece of mutton and began to cut it. As he cut, he smiled and said, "Brother Han, you're looking for a better job. Where are you getting rich now?" Yang Han was waiting for him to say this. He arrogantly glanced around. Seeing that everyone was listening attentively, he smiled reservedly. Not really, not really. It's just that I'm indebted to our Jiankong Prefecture's Magistrate Master Li for his appreciation. Now I'm a small steward in the Li estate." Old Fan was shocked. He exclaimed, "Io? That's amazing! A 7th-rank official in front of the Prime Minister's door. Brother Han, now that you're a steward in Magistrate Master Li's estate, I'm afraid your status isn't lower than Head Li's, right?" Yang Han smiled faintly. It wasn't good for him to flatter himself, but he didn't deny it either. It was clear that he tacitly agreed with Old Fan's words. Originally, why else would he be dressed like a flower with a hairpin and a sachet tied to his waist? Why else would he appear in the area he was previously in charge of? He was returning home in silken robes. Southern Song Chronicles forwarding address /33XS/317/553/33XS/317/553/. Chapter 2063. In front of him, the youths that were locked in battle with the barbaric Shadow Black Boar all had unswerving gazes, and they all had expressions as if they were unafraid of death. Even if their hands were already trembling incessantly, they still didn't shrink back in the slightest, and their expressions were resolute and resolute. Whereas the youth that was sent flying earlier had a robust body like an ox, and he laid on the ground, and it seemed like he wasn't hit in the vitals earlier. The youth shook his dizzy head, then swiftly crawled up from the ground and continued to join the battle as he roared furiously. "Big Brother Lei, Big Brother Onyo, I'll help you!" The youth that was sent flying opened his bright eyes wide, and his killing intent was cold. Among the youths, 2 were at the 9th level of the Origin True stage, and 1 was at the 2nd level of the Origin Void stage, yet they brandished the ordinary weapons in their hands tightly, and they were full of vigor. The youths moved back and forth with steady footsteps and appropriate coordination. Relying on their low cultivation in the martial Tao, they were barely able to enter a stalemate with the barbaric shadow black boar on the surface. Su-yi, who was observing from the shadows, was instead filled with doubts, and he was able to feel a trace of strangeness from this. The group of youths below were around the age of 11 or 12, and their natural talent was passable, yet they only had a low cultivation in martial Tao. The strange thing was that the three youths were all able to rely on their formidable strength of flesh and blood to fight a few rounds with this extremely enormous barbaric shadow black boar. If it was an ordinary person that was sent flying, even if it wasn't a vital point, the person would have long since died, let alone an underage child. This bastard seems to have the intention of stalling. It didn't attack heavily. Standing in the dark, Su-yi's eyes were bright, but his frown was getting tighter and tighter. He was at the peak of the Origin Void Realm, with one foot in the Origin Emperor Realm. How could he be surrounded by a few ordinary kids? After a short while, Su-yi muttered in a low voice and decided to observe for a while longer. He stretched out his hand to withdraw a shuttle shadow pill from his spatial bag and placed it in his mouth. When he lowered his cultivation and aura to the Origin Monarch stage, Su-yi swiftly changed his appearance and became an ordinary youth of 25 or 26 years old. Sizing up the battle situation, Su-yi shook his head more and more as the corners of his mouth slightly curled into a strange arc. Looks like there are many secrets hidden deep within the mountains of the Cloud Prefecture. This is a high mountain of the Cloud Prefecture, and it's desolate. They actually appeared here in the middle of the night. Don't you find it strange? Su-yi asked Qi Feihong. Then do we still need to save them? Qi Feihong frowned. Obviously, he didn't want Su-yi to get involved in this matter. Su-yi didn't express his opinion. He continued to observe the changes in the forest in front of him. His soul quickly spread out, ready to attack at any time when there was a crisis. In a split second, an electric current flashed through Su-yi's mind. He raised his eyes and his sharp divine sense filled the air. He discovered that there was still a very strong aura of an expert on the opposite mountain. Someone's here. Narrowing his eyes, Su-yi had goosebumps all over his body and subconsciously hid himself. Hiding behind the boulder, Su-yi's expression was solemn. A cold gaze shot out from his eyes like a cold drill. Noticing that Su-yi's expression wasn't right, Qi Feihong followed Su-yi's line of sight and exclaimed, "Oh my God! An expert of the Origin Ancestor Realm?" Su-yi nodded silently. He quickly formed a seal with his hands and a vast and desolate ancient aura instantly covered the entire forest. He immediately knew the expert's exact location. That wild boar was lured here by that expert, and it even obeys his orders. Interesting. Su-yi squatted down. His eyes were like lightning as he transmitted his thoughts to Qi Feihong. Hearing this, Qi Feihong's expression gradually darkened. An expert of the Origin Ancestor Realm wanted to rob a group of weak martial artists? What was he after? In the middle of the night? This matter would be a joke no matter where it was. However, Su-yi possessed the demon-subduing illusory manual and a strange power that made all the savage beasts fear him. Qi Feihong couldn't help but believe it. Could it be that this group of people isn't as simple as they seem on the surface? Qi Feihong said softly. Su-yi's expression was ice-cold. He turned his head and glanced at the situation. A glint flashed across his eyes as he said seriously, "Impossible. It's true that these youths have weak cultivations." Looking at the battle from afar, the brute shadow black boar seemed to have finally gotten tired of playing. It bared its fangs, which glinted coldly as its killing intent soared to the heavens. The brute shadow black boar's huge head swung in the air. Its mountain-like body, coupled with its biting cold fangs, suddenly drew a huge arc in the air. Clang! The brute shadow black boar's attack was originally powerful and heavy. The arc of light it released was even more destructive. With a slight movement, it barbarically broke through the formation of the youths. Roar! In the distance, the brute shadow black boar had succeeded in its attack. Its eyes shone with a ferocious glint as it gathered its strength behind its back. Its muscles bulged like steel dragons as a visible dark purple light slowly emanated from its body. Not good. This beast is going to make its final attack. It doesn't want to be entangled any longer. Sui cursed inwardly. He glanced at the opposite mountain. The hidden expert's eyes flashed as his figure floated out. Bang! At this time, the three youths had lost all their momentum. Only then did they realize that the brute shadow black boar had not used its full strength. It turned out that a casual attack was enough to send all three of them flying. Looking at the brute shadow black boar's figure that covered the sky and the earth, the three youths fell to the ground like a mountain. Their pupils constricted, and their faces were filled with despair. They had already closed their eyes. Evil beast! Don't hurt the children! Come at me! Behind them, Uncle Lou's eyes were wide open, and his veins were bulging. The wound on his chest suddenly burst open, but it was still useless. He could only watch as the brute shadow black boar pressed down on him. Roar! The brute shadow black boar instantly covered the youths. Uncle Lou and the crying children closed their eyes in despair, not daring to watch any more. Boom! The sky fell and the earth cracked and the mountain shook. In a flash, between the mountains, large areas of trees collapsed. The originally dense forest was also crushed by the brute shadow black boar. What? Uncle Lou and the youths opened their eyes. The scene in front of them stunned everyone. They saw a beautiful golden figure standing in front of them. The brute shadow black boar bared its huge fangs, and its eyes were filled with fear. It did not dare to move forward. Under the moonlight, the woman's eyes glowed with a sharp light. Her crescent brows were raised, and a chill spread from her body. When the snow-white light shone on her face, Sui could see her face clearly. The blonde woman had a high nose bridge, and her skin was fair with a hint of red. Her slender waist was tightly wrapped in a suit which accentuated her enchanting curves. Her origin ancestor cultivation coupled with her indifferent expression gave off a dignified aura that prevented strangers from getting close to her. Holy golden flames surrounded her, adding a sense of nobility. It's actually a woman, and a beautiful one at that. Sui was deep in thought. He was even more puzzled by this woman's actions of hurting and saving others. Under the cold light, the woman's jade-like lips spoke softly. She was like a fairy in the wilderness, full of charm. The whip in her hand trembled lightly, and her voice rang out. Everyone, step back. Take care of yourselves. I'll deal with this beast. Chapter 2064. Xiao Lei, Anyo, and the others nodded gratefully as if they had just heard a divine decree. They quickly pulled Uncle Lou and the others behind them. Roar! The beast's roar shook the sky, and a bloody stench filled the air. A low roar came from the throat of the bull shadow black boar. Its steel-like iron hooves sank deep into the ground, and killing intent burst out of its eyes. All of a sudden, the black boar raised its huge head, and a ferocious whirlwind of demonic aura gushed out from its bloody mouth. Little beast, how dare you be so presumptuous? The woman said indifferently. She stepped on the profound handle and quickly rushed toward the bull shadow black boar. Her long golden hair swayed in the wind under the moonlight. In the next second, she arrived at the bull shadow black boar like lightning, her slender fingers holding the golden whip tightly. The whip changed 1,000 times, and it was like a sky full of snakes spitting their tongues. In an instant, it covered the sky and turned into a golden dragon that wrapped around the bull shadow black boar. So fast! Sui and Chi Feihong snorted softly. They hid in the dense leaves and looked at the golden-haired woman. Then, the corners of their mouths twitched. Roar! Roar! Immediately, the tied-up bull-shadow black boar roared back and forth in the golden whip net without releasing its demonic energy beam. Its fangs were incomparably sharp. Above the void, a huge black body could not last for more than a few breaths of time before it began to twitch violently under the golden whip. The woman shouted softly, "Die!" Bang! The whip turned up and down as if it was alive. A swift and violent spiritual energy storm appeared out of nowhere and surrounded the bull-shadow black boar. A faint dragon's roar resounded in the sky. Under the destructive light, the bull-shadow black boar's eyes shrank. It turned into a pile of meat and fell heavily to the ground. Boom! Following a deafening sonic boom, countless spiderweb-like cracks quickly formed on the ground where he landed, and all the trees within a radius of a dozen miles were turned into dust and scattered in the air. The whole forest was silent. The golden power whistled through the forest. The faint dragon's might was so faint that it was almost undetectable. The vast metal power swept through the world. The forest shook and dust filled the sky. The leaves that filled the sky turned into a gust of wind and drifted away. Under the leisurely moonlight, an indifferent golden figure stood gracefully. In front of him, the huge carcass of the barbarian pig was piled up like a small hill in front of him, completely blocking off the mist in the distant mountains. The clouds disappeared, the moon disappeared, and the stars in the sky trembled. At this moment, the forest was so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. The faint breathing of the blonde woman was mixed with the whistling of the surrounding primordial chi. It was magnified for no reason, and the aura of an expert was fully revealed. Behind the woman, the youths who had witnessed the series of shocking attacks widened their eyes, their mouths almost touching the ground. Their eyes were filled with fear, but more than that, there was shock. The expert before him had suddenly appeared here. He also dealt with the berserker shadow-black pig in an extremely domineering manner. To these youths who had never left the village, they didn't know whether this was a blessing or a curse. Dense beads of sweat slowly flowed down from their foreheads. Their helpless gazes landed on the beautiful golden figure. Their eyes were filled with panic, and they did not dare to breathe loudly. The aura of the Dragon Clan. Sui sucked in a breath of cold air. The corners of his mouth twitched, and his eyes emitted a cold light. Not only did the divine dragon token on his body react, but the phantom of the golden dragon flying up and down in his mind was especially active. In his mind, it wanted to break through and conquer all dragons. He, who had 3 wisps of dragon soul and 9 drops of blood essence, was breathing rapidly. The fine dense leaves between his eyebrows emitted a chill. Just like the youths, who was the mysterious expert in front of him? Why did he have the aura of the Dragon Clan? Was he an enemy or a friend? Could he be from the Dragon Clan? Chi Feihong muttered softly. Sui immediately raised his eyebrows, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. He concentrated and restrained his aura even more perfectly. At this moment, a shrill voice broke the silence of the night. "Uncle Lu!" A young girl surrounding the middle-aged man instantly screamed. After recovering from their shock, the youths saw that Uncle Lu's life was hanging by a thread, and their faces were as white as paper. They immediately panicked. The middle-aged man lying on the ground saw that the danger was over, and the tense mental pressure instantly dissipated. His original injuries also began to accelerate. The youths called Xiao Lei and Anyo had tears in their eyes. They shook their heads and shook Uncle Lu, who was about to faint. In the end, Xiao Lei, Anyo, and the others looked at the golden-haired expert in front of them anxiously. They bit their lips and said in a panic, "Big sister, can you save Uncle Lu? Uncle Lu is dying." Turning around, the golden-haired woman once again captured everyone's attention. This time, Sui finally saw the woman's appearance clearly. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, and an indifferent temperament. Her white, illusory skin, coupled with the moonlight, gave people an extraordinary fairy appearance. A hint of arrogance was revealed in her tight golden clothes. She was plump and full of wildness. She was like an exotic flower that could hurt people, but people couldn't help but take a second look at her. The woman's chest rose and fell. Her cold gaze fell on Uncle Lou's body. The bone-deep wound was dripping with blood. Due to his serious injuries, his body was constantly twitching. White foam quickly seeped out from the corner of his mouth. The golden-haired woman breathed a sigh of relief. Her beautiful eyes were solemn, and her voice was cold and clear. She said, "Get out of the way. Go and get that bastard's monster core. I'll give him first aid." After saying that, the woman lifted her beautiful feet and quickly came to Uncle Lou's side. She carefully checked Uncle Lou's injuries and murmured in a low voice, "He was poisoned before. Now that he was severely injured by this bastard, the poison has already reached his heart. If you're quick, you still have a chance." As soon as she finished speaking, the youths' faces turned pale when they heard that the poison had already reached his heart. Their gazes swept back and forth between Uncle Lou and the beautiful expert. Their simple faces were filled with despair. Large teardrops fell from their cheeks. Their dirty little hands wiped away their tears as they sobbed and twitched. "Children, don't be afraid. I have something to say to this benefactor. Listen to her. Go and get the monster core." Uncle Lou forced a smile. His twitching face was weak and dispirited. He tried his best to comfort the youths. "Why aren't you going? If you want him to die, don't move." The golden-haired woman glanced at them, and her eyebrows suddenly sank. The youths nodded in panic and instantly ran to the hill like wild boar. They took out their weapons and began to dissect the wild boar very seriously. Then, the golden-haired woman flicked her finger and a pill was sent into Uncle Lou's mouth. The pill's mellow fragrance filled the air, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth seemed to be attracted to Uncle Lou. Update 1 New Z Fastest FX XGK0, unspecified currency. Surrounded by the smell of medicine, Uncle Lou's expression eased a little. He lay on a simple stretcher made of branches and said, "Thank you, expert. I know whether I can survive this time. But please help me send these youths back to the village. I, Lu Chi, will repay you in my next life." Shaking her head, the golden-haired woman looked at Lu Chi with a trace of indifference. Chapter 2065. I don't know who you are, and I don't want to know why you're here in the middle of the night. Since I've saved them, I won't give up. I'll take them back to the village myself. After a short pause, Lu Chi's eyes turned serious. He was about to say something when the golden lady stopped him. Her voice was soft but firm. "Stop talking. The more you talk, the less you'll live. I'll think of a way." In the dense forest, Su Yi's lips curled into a faint smile. The mysterious expert was clearly setting a trap for Uncle Lou. First, she lured the wild boar to attack. Then, she took the initiative to rescue them and sent them back to the village. Was there something wrong with the village? Why couldn't a Yuan Zhong expert find it? Su Yi's gaze fell on the three young men who were busy in the distance. His eyes gradually darkened. The young men were agile and didn't slow down at all because of the steel-like skin of the brute shadow black boar. It seems that there's something she wants in this village. The aura of the dragon clan. This woman is not simple. Su Yi sneered in a low voice. His mind was working quickly. Thump, thump. With flushed faces, the young men came to the expert's side with the monster elixir that still had a faint vitality in their hands. Seeing this, the golden lady's lips curled up. Yuan Qi spread out in her hand. The golden Yuan Qi was as sharp as a steel knife, cutting open the thin layer of the monster elixir. Immediately, a ball of extremely pulsating monster elixir floated in the air. It flickered and could disappear at any time. Seizing the opportunity, the golden lady shot out a golden aura from her fingertip and surrounded the liquid. Following her will, it turned into dozens of drops of monster elixir and poured into Uncle Lou's body. Boom! Following this, a light wave floated out of the golden lady's palm and poured into Uncle Lou from the top of his head to the bottom of his feet, protecting his body that had been deformed due to the continuous collision. He's forced to use the monster elixir to prolong his life, but the poison has already entered his heart. If he drags on and can't find a suitable way, there's nothing he can do. Sue-Yi squinted his eyes and carefully observed the golden lady's every move. Now that he had the dragon ancestor medicine scripture, Sue-Yi could see the key points by referring to the method in it. The woman's method treated the symptoms but not the root cause. Even if Lu Qi could survive this, he could not survive until the third day. However, as long as the woman reached the village, she would have achieved her goal and Lu Qi's death would have nothing to do with her. What a heartless woman! The corners of Sue-Yi's mouth curled up as he secretly glowed. Who? After a long while, the short treatment was finally over. Lu Qi woke up instantly as if he was rejuvenated. His breath was smooth and his external injuries were healing at an amazing speed. Lu Qi got up and thanked the beautiful woman repeatedly. All right, we'll still be in danger here. Let's go back. The blonde woman pretended to leave but was stopped by Lu Qi and others. Q0YQ Lu Qi was nervous. He looked around and found demon odor everywhere. He said in a low voice, I took the children out to practice this time. If I go back now, I'm afraid there will be more disasters. Benefactor, if you can send us back to the village safely, we will be deeply grateful. Sue-Yi had a panoramic view of the expression of the mysterious woman with her back to the crowd. Her clear eyes glowed with a cunning light in the moonlight. She raised the corners of her mouth slightly and raised her eyebrows. I don't know you. Let's call it a day. The blonde woman pointed at the footprints. Her body instantly raised a brilliance of primordial qi, and her clothes fluttered alone in the night. Rustle! In the dense forest, a figure flashed out. Uncle Lou and the children, who were a little disappointed, became nervous again and their eyes fell on the direction of the person. The person was Sue-Yi. Sue-Yi slid down a small high slope, bringing up bursts of smoke and dust. At the moment of landing, Sue-Yi's eyes inadvertently slid over the blonde woman. The golden dragon phantom in his heart was more majestic and turbulent, but it was suppressed again by the huge energy of Sue-Yi's mysterious light group. Thump! Their eyes met, and a chill emerged from the two at the same time. Looking at Sue-Yi, the blonde woman's eyes turned from surprise to coldness. She glanced at Sue-Yi with a feeling that her good plan was disturbed. Who is it? The blonde woman suddenly raised a wisp of primordial qi in her hand. It was cold and full of hostility. Immediately, Lu Qi and the children subconsciously hid beside the blonde woman. They stared at Sue-Yi with surprise and fear. Don't do it. I'm here to pick herbs in the deep mountains. I heard a sound here, so I came over. Before coming, Sue-Yi had restrained his breath to the extreme and pretended to be innocent, but there was no ripple in his heart. At this time, Sue-Yi, in the eyes of outsiders, was a young man of 25 or 26 years old with the cultivation of the Origin Emperor realm. Picking herbs? The blonde woman glanced at the bamboo basket behind Sue-Yi. The herbs were still stained with the night dew, and the faint fragrance of herbs lingered in the air. It was very pleasant. The blonde woman walked towards Sue-Yi leisurely. Golden light flashed in her eyes, and a huge soul power spread out instantly. This little girl is testing me. Qi Feihong chuckled. The woman in front of him had the strength of the Origin Ancestor realm, but compared with Sue-Yi's soul power, she paled in comparison. Sensing the lady's probing, Sue-Yi unleashed all of his Yuan Emperor aura that he had been suppressing and pretended to be struggling. Are you testing me? It's the Origin Emperor realm. The blonde woman's beautiful eyelashes drooped, and she frowned. She retreated before she could find Sue-Yi's heart throbbing. Suspicious behavior. It would be strange if you don't accept the soul probing. Sue-Yi shook the basket behind him, and said reluctantly with a cold face, "It's late at night and you're disturbing my rest. I don't want to trouble you, but you want to trouble me first?" Hearing that it was another Origin Emperor realm expert, Lu Qi and the others' faces changed instantly. Their eyes moved slightly, and they said to the blonde woman, "It should be a misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding. Benefactor, let's go." The blonde woman's mouth twitched, and her eyes were like deep pools, as if she wanted to see through Sui. She glanced at the people behind her and said, "Isn't it suspicious that the brutal shadow black boar suddenly attacked in the middle of the night? I've never seen an Origin Emperor realm expert picking herbs." This. Lu Qi held the children's hands and pursed his lips tightly. He had lived nearby for many years, and it had been like this for generations. This time, he had deliberately chosen a secluded dense forest to act at night because he didn't want to encounter brutal demon beasts. In the end, it was still a disaster. It was indeed suspicious. Everyone looked at Sui in unison, and their suspicious eyes kept darting back and forth between Sui's body. What a wicked person complaining first. It seems that I have to get involved in this matter even if I don't want to. Sui sneered, and the killing intent in his heart rose sharply. His eyes trembled, and he strode to the blonde woman's side. "You look good, but why do you have a black heart?" Sui leaned forward, tilted his head, and put his hands on the bamboo belt of the basket, and smiled. Chapter 2066. If that's the case, I can also suspect that the brutal shadow black pig was lured here. There's nothing to be afraid of. Sui sneered. Bullshit. The blonde woman's eyes were filled with killing intent. She stared at Sui with a gloomy face. Sui, who suddenly appeared, seemed to be aware of it, but he was not moved by her soul energy at all. It was unknown what kind of strength such a person had. The blonde woman's heart was filled with killing intent. She said to Lu Qi behind her, "I will send you back safely, but I have to deal with this person first." Lu Qi was a little embarrassed. Looking at Sui in front of him, he couldn't make up his mind. His lips instantly pursed into a straight line. He and the children didn't want to go through another battle. The plan of coming out could only be put on hold temporarily, and they would make plans after returning to the village. "If she kills me, no one in the world can save me." Sui looked indifferently at Lu Qi's unusually ruddy face. Lu Qi naturally knew that his life was hanging on because of the monster pill in his body. If he couldn't get medical treatment in time, he still couldn't escape death. His face became more and more ugly, and he looked at the blonde woman embarrassedly. The blonde woman had promised to cure him. Would she really kill the young man who suddenly appeared in front of him? What can you do? Nonsense. The blonde woman sneered and crossed her hands, full of disdain. She couldn't do anything when she was at the level of Yuan Zone. Even if he was an expert at the level of Yuan Emperor, she believed that Sui was just struggling and stalling. "Big sister, please save Uncle Lu." Several boys and girls looked at the blonde woman eagerly. In the children's hearts, even if there was no hope, they still hoped that the two experts in front of them could save him. Suddenly, Sui laughed in his heart. The blonde woman took Lu Qi's life in exchange for a way to return to the village, and at the same time opened the door of convenience for him. "I know very well whether I can save Lu Qi or not. I also know very well that there is no way." Sui's meaning was very clear. He knew that the blonde woman had no other choice, and if she attacked him now, she would definitely expose her intentions. The golden-haired woman was entangled by several youths. Her expression eased a little as she glared at Sui with killing intent in her eyes. There better be a way. If he couldn't be saved, he would die. You can save him, but if I find out that he has any ulterior motives, he will still die. Sui shrugged indifferently and quickly walked to Lu Qi's side. The mighty aura in his hand ran along Lu Qi's tendons and meridians, and his face darkened. The meridians in this villager's body are not symmetrical, and most of them are blocked. No wonder their cultivation is not high. Su-yi was suspicious. After a simple check on Lu Qi's injury, he looked calm and smiled. Let's go. Don't worry, I will find a way. Su-yi patted Lu Strange's shoulder and smiled. Looking at Su-yi's sincere face, Lu Qi secretly glanced at the cold blonde woman and smiled awkwardly. Thank you, brother. Let's hurry back to the village. Then, under the leadership of Lu Qi, they set foot on the road back to the village. 0 with Su-yi and the golden-haired woman by his side, there were no longer any barbarian beasts blocking their way. Their journey was very smooth. Along the way, the golden-haired woman followed behind him with a gloomy expression. Su-yi deliberately slowed down and approached the woman, revealing a brilliant smile. What's his name? The towering mountain path was winding and rugged. Among the dense trees, leaves were constantly falling down, lifting the leaves above their head. The blonde woman continued to walk forward with an impatient expression, completely ignoring Su-yi's question. The dead don't need to know my name. Coughing dryly, Su-yi stood behind her and sized up her beautiful figure. Immediately, he felt much more at ease. If it were him, he would be so angry that he would vomit blood if his good plan was ruined by someone else. Immediately, Su-yi didn't give up. He moved forward again and tilted his head, saying, Don't be like this. My name is Isu. If we really fight, I can also remember your name. If you die, I can also set up a monument or something. You're courting death. The blonde woman frowned and her anger instantly spread all around. She stared at Su-yi with a pair of big eyes. Yes, big sister, we still don't know your name. When we return to the village later, when the village chief smells it, we don't know how to answer. The boys and girls turned around and looked at the beautiful woman with simple eyes. Curling her lips, the blonde woman restrained her aura again. She glanced at Su-yi with disgust and said coldly, My name is Yuya. Yuya? Su-yi's eyes rippled slightly and he reached out his hand to touch his chin. No matter how he provoked this woman, she didn't take any action. It seemed that she was looking for Lu Qi's village. What was her purpose? Following behind him, Su-yi had a bad feeling about this. Immediately, Su-yi's indifferent eyes looked at her. It's hard to say whether her name is Yuya or Longya. Su-yi thought secretly. With a faint smile, he followed her again. Following the crowd, Su-yi also knew that these villagers lived in the depths of the Cloud Mountain and had never left the mountain for generations. In addition to Xiao Lei and Anyo, the other children were named Xiao Lan, Qian Qian, and Xiao Ben. After walking for a long time, Lu Qi suddenly turned back and pointed to the scattered lights in the depths of the mountain and excitedly introduced them. Here we are. We are in the village. That's our village, two lords. At this time, the sky had quietly turned white. The scattered stars were located in the sky, guiding the confused passers-by. Too many things had happened that night. The teenagers and Lu Qi were very excited to return to the village alive. They trotted towards the village. Sister Yuya, brother Isu, that's our Shanglong village. It's the place where we have lived for generations. Come on. Xiaolan and Qian Qian held hands proudly. Standing on a high place, Longya and Su-yi looked at the mountain not far away at the same time. In the middle of the mountain, there were several scattered villages, and it seemed that there were only a few dozen families in total. Su-yi's brows gradually sank as he probed with his mind. The spiritual energy that he spread out returned to his body. Su-yi faintly felt that there was a barrier between the village and the golden dragon's shadow. This village seems to deliberately not want to be discovered by people with the aura of the golden dragon. Su-yi's pupils twitched, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Moving forward quickly and passing through an invisible space barrier, the shadow of the golden dragon in Su-yi's mind surged again, but it was soon suppressed. Secretly operating the Origin Supreme technique, Su-yi moved forward as if he was treading on the wave. His eyes glanced at Longya, who had fallen behind. Longya's face was slightly pale. After entering the first barrier, she quickly hid her palms in her sleeves. A vigorous primordial chi burst out from her body, and the faint fluctuations were all perceived by Su-yi. Sure enough, this place also has an effect on her. Su-yi whistled, and his pace became faster and faster. He ran into the village like a normal person. Chapter 2067. This guy. Longya frowned slightly and tried to adjust her breathing. She followed Su-yi into Shanglong village. After entering the village, Su-yi saw dozens of simple stone houses. There were no exquisite carvings or decorations on the walls. From the outside, Shanglong village was almost out of tune with the outside world, just like the primitive times. Grandpa village head, we are back. Qianqian and Xiaolan ran and shouted. As soon as Lu Qi, Xiaolei, Anyo and others returned to the village, their voices quickly attracted the residents in the village. Every house lit up like a string of pearls. Soon, many villagers came out of the stone houses after hearing the news. Many parents were still dressed and seemed to have not slept. As soon as they came out, the children's parents were shocked. They surrounded the teenagers, looked them up and down, and kept asking questions. Why are you back so soon? Qianqian? It was Qianqian's mother, who was dressed plainly and was very sober. Xiaolei, tell me, how is it? A middle-aged man with a short and strong body held Xiaolei's shoulder. Anyo, tell me, is it you? Is it you? The middle-aged man, who was slightly thin and looked weak, was also excited and asked when he saw Anyo come back. The parents of the teenagers grabbed their hands and pulled them to the side, trying to ask them something. In the face of their parents' inquiry, the teenagers looked at each other and were all depressed. They shook their heads and lowered their small heads, not daring to look at the adult. After getting such a result, the parents were all gloomy and sighed, full of melancholy. The rest of the villagers were also worried, disappointed, worried, puzzled, and shocked. Their expressions were different. Then a villager came forward and looked at Lu Qi's dispirited and weak appearance. He lowered his voice and said, Lu Qi, what's going on? Didn't any of you get selected? Yes. Why are you back so soon? Well, Lu Qi was a little embarrassed. With an embarrassed look, he covered his aching chest and did not answer. In the face of everyone's expectant eyes, Lu Qi scratched the back of his head and was also embarrassed. Then he glanced at Su-yi and Longya, who were coming quickly in front of him. Following Lu Qi's sight, the two figures gradually grew from rice to half a person's height, which was very abrupt in the bright night. The villagers' expressions quickly became tense. Many of them picked up their weapons and growled in a low voice. What did you do? How could you bring an outsider into the village? Lu Qi, what the hell are you doing? Are you trying to kill us? Little Lei, who are these two people? As Su-yi and Longya gradually approached, their gazes met with the villagers, and they quickly felt the fear and wariness of the villagers. Some of them even looked at each other. Who are you? Upper Dragon Village does not welcome you. Get out. Yes, get out. Shanglong Village doesn't need strangers. With weapons in hand, dozens of villagers picked up their usual farming tools and glared at Su-yi and Longya as if they were facing a formidable enemy. It seems that they don't welcome us. Su-yi tilted his head, squinted his eyes, and smiled bitterly at Longya. He peeked with his soul and found that the cultivation of these villagers was basically at the original Void Realm, which was not much different from Little Lei and Anyo. Could it be that the upper limit of the villagers here was the original Void Realm? Su-yi looked at the villagers in front of him and suddenly felt that this village was even more unusual. Lu Qi, please give us a reasonable explanation. Some agitated villagers, holding farming tools and machetes, pointed at Su-yi and Longya. Most of the villagers were trembling in fear. Judging from their auras, Su-yi and Long Ye were irresistible to the villagers. You misunderstood. They are not bad guys. Lu Qi hurriedly explained. Don't be like this. Uncle, Mom, Brother Yi Su and Sister Yuya are both good people. Qianqian, Xiaolan, and Little Lei stretched out their hands and angrily stood in front of Su-yi. Their faces were red and full of anxiety. Yes. Without them, we wouldn't have come back this time. Uncle Lu would have come back long ago. Anyo pouted and shouted at the villagers. Su-yi smiled. Along the way, he had been talking and laughing with these little guys and kept protecting Lu Qi's life. It seemed that it was useful. Don't you want to say something, Yuya? Su-yi turned his head and smiled faintly. Long Ye frowned and looked at the villagers coldly. She slowly stretched out her palm from her sleeve, and a strong wind protected her body. She said coldly, "What can they do?" Su-yi laughed in his heart. His soul sense found that Long Ye had not been completely bound by the restriction formation at the door. Sensing Long Ye's fluctuating aura, Long Ye still pretended to be calm and collected. The village head is here. Everyone, get out of the way. Su-yi raised his eyebrows and saw the emotional crowd make a path for him. In the distance, an old man with white hair and a beard walked over. He was a little stooped and looked about 10 years old. The old man put his hands behind his back and squinted his eyes as if he could not open them. He was wearing pajamas and slowly walked over. Elder Yu. Village head Yu. You're still awake? Everyone. A deep voice came from afar and his laughter was kind. When the crowd saw village head Yu coming, they immediately quieted down. With respect in their eyes, they gently put down their weapons and bowed to the old man. Elder Yu, who walked over, was more stooped than expected. He shook the pajamas on his body and glanced at the children and Lu Qi. Both of them were intact. Then, he said to the villagers, "They're guests from afar. You sent Lu Qi and the children back, and this is how you treat them?" His voice was soft but did not lose its majesty. The vitality of the 8th level of the Origin Void stage mixed with his voice spread out. The villagers immediately lowered their heads and pursed their lips. But they're outsiders. Some villagers were still a little worried. After glancing at the scene, Elder Yu raised his hand to signal the villagers to stop talking. He walked forward and his cloudy eyes fell on Su-yi and Yuya. When he saw the basket on Su-yi's back, his squinted eyes shone brightly. Guests, Upper Dragon Village has always been isolated and has a lot of resistance to the outside world. I hope you can understand. Su-yi smiled lightly. Upper Dragon Village was isolated from the outside world and was somewhat similar to Spirit Ancient Village and Feng Family Village. Therefore, he did not mind. It's good that you know. This is the treatment I get for saving your people. Long Ye coldly snorted, and the yuan qi in her body surged out like water. Whoosh! The surging waves blew away the morning mist and blew the village head's pajamas far away. Immediately, the villagers present were shocked and had goosebumps. Chapter 2068. F***CK, what a temper! Su-yi knew that Long Ye was here with ulterior motives, and at this moment, he did not give in at all. Su-yi's heart skipped a beat. This woman is not to be trifled with. Standing behind her, Su-yi sniffed the air and felt that Long Ye had already adapted to the restrictions here. He immediately stepped forward to ease the awkwardness. It's nothing, village head. She's just like that. Yes, Grandpa. Sister Yuya helped me kill the brutal shadow black pig. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to come back. Qianqian panicked. Hearing this, village head Yu, who was stunned, smiled and said, "Then you're our savior. What are you waiting for? Everyone has waited for a long time. Let's rest early. We'll talk about it tomorrow." Then, village head Yu hurried to greet everyone. The villagers, who were relieved, quickly made way for them and led the children to the stone house. Sister Yuya, Let's rest at my house. Xiaolan will also stay at my house tonight. Qianqian looked at Longya innocently and sincerely. Longya glanced at Su Yi and saw that he had already left with Xiao Lei and Anyo. She smiled and said, "Let's go." The night was getting brighter. There were still 2 hours before it was completely bright. Lying on the simple stone bed, Su Yi put his hands behind his head and looked at the ceiling. His heart was full of doubts. He had already scouted this upper dragon village, just now. Everyone's physical strength was very strong, but their martial arts cultivation was congenitally restricted. Longya and Yuyao were even more mysterious. It was obvious that they had tried every means to come to the upper dragon village and pretended to have no desires. The restrictive spell outside the upper dragon village only worked on people with the aura of the golden dragon. Training? They went to train in the middle of the night? Su Yi murmured in his heart. Everyone knew that things didn't make sense. Su Yi was more and more curious about the secrets hidden in this place. What kind of secret was hidden in the upper dragon village in the depths of the Cloud Mountain? At this time, a gentle spatial ripple appeared outside the village. Su Yi, who had an extraordinary spiritual sense, sat up and smiled faintly. Looks like someone is about to make a move. Su Yi took a shadow shuttle pellet and used the shadow walk pellet. The cloud shadow treading frost enveloped his entire body, almost becoming one with his surroundings. In the half-lit upper dragon village, all the lights had been extinguished. In the desolate village, there was only one house that was still lit. Quickly escaping from the stone house, Su Yi saw a black figure heading towards the village chief's house. Quietly, Su Yi came to the other side of the house. Inside the ice crystal, he could see clearly that the person hiding outside was Longya. "Have you found the Lord Guardian?" A heavy and anxious voice came from inside the house. It was village chief Elder Yu. Judging from the breath, there were about 3 or 4 people inside. Lu Qi coughed and panted. "I didn't find anything. I brought the children to the place you mentioned, but there was no response at all." When he returned, he encountered the berserker Shadow Black Boar. "Almost." Sigh. Elder Yu outlined his body. From the light and shadow, he could see that the boar was walking back and forth. "It doesn't make sense. Is the guardian of Upper Dragon Village gone?" In the face of the village chief's sigh, several elderly people's voices trembled, and they were very flustered. "Originally, we wanted the children to choose for the Lord Guardian to leave a bloodline for our Upper Dragon Village. Then, we would tell the Lord Guardian about the situation here and beg for protection. What should we do now?" "Village Chief, Upper Dragon Village can't suffer like this again. We can't cultivate and hide for years. Do the children have to go through the pain of the previous generation again? Right. Even if the Lord Guardian doesn't appear, we still have the Infinite Sect. The good karma from before should blossom and bear fruit." The village chief turned his head, and his pair of turbid eyes suddenly burst into a ball of anger. The corners of his mouth trembled as he shouted with determination. "Don't mention the Infinite Sect. Little Can is still in the Infinite Sect. She is the hope of our Upper Dragon Village. From now on, no one is allowed to mention the Infinite Sect." Sigh. Several elderly people in the village were sternly reprimanded by Elder Yu, and their eyes immediately fell into despair. Their old bodies sat on the chairs like magnificent shells. "Village Chief, is there no other way?" Lu Qi sat up, his face pale. Village Chief Yu sighed heavily and shook his head. Everyone's faces were pale. "This time, I'm afraid we can't hide. As for those 2 benefactors, let's send them out of the village as soon as possible tomorrow. Those people are coming, we can't let anything happen to our benefactors." The village chief heavily stabbed his walking stick into the ground. He seemed to have made a great decision, and his gaze swept over everyone. The time of life and death is coming again. Now that the Lord Guardian can't save them, it seems that Upper Dragon Village will end here. Everyone present nodded and the stone house fell into silence. Lu Qi's face was ashen and tears of pain slowly flowed down his face. Su-yi withdrew his soul to investigate. Within the ice crystal, Su-yi looked dignified and glanced at Long Ye not far away. Long Ye's originally cold eyes instantly softened. Her red lips were tightly pursed as if she was thinking about something. Then, Su-yi shook his head and returned to the stone house. The whole upper dragon village fell into silence again. Su-yi, who was lying on the bed again, let out a long sigh of relief. A glimmer of light flashed through his eyes. His gaze fell on the sky that was beginning to redden outside the stone window. Upper Dragon Village was still immersed in the boundless night. Limitless sect? Su-yi's heart was filled with shock. The Upper Dragon Village actually had a connection with the Limitless sect. In addition, Upper Dragon Village also had a guardian. The purpose of Lu Qi's trip this time was to take the children to find the guardian. However, they didn't find the guardian. It seemed that the guardian should be the one who helped Upper Dragon Village set up the Golden Dragon restriction. With this ability, he should also be one of the 8 people who inherited the Golden Dragon's bloodline and will. Thinking of the Golden Dragon restriction here, which was specially designed to deal with the aura of the Golden Dragon, the people chasing them should also be a group of people with the aura of the Golden Dragon. They had been looking for Upper Dragon Village all year round. Therefore, Upper Dragon Village had been hiding and forbidding cultivation for years to avoid their enemies. Su-yi's eyes suddenly flashed a glimmer of light. Who else could it be that wanted to exterminate people with the aura of the Golden Dragon? Brahma Dragon's Celestial Palace. Su-yi snorted coldly. An unknown murderous intent surged from the depths of his eyes. So, that girl Yuya is also a member of the Long family? Qi Feihong floated around in his spiritual sense. I'm not sure yet. She doesn't seem to be on the same side as the people chasing Upper Dragon Village. Su-yi looked out of the window suspiciously. If they were on the same side, why would Long Ye save Lu Qi? Judging from her performance just now, Long Ye wasn't an evil person. Immediately, Su-yi shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He sat up and formed a seal with his hands. Recently, he felt that he was on the verge of breaking through to the 4th level of Origin Ancestor stage. Becoming stronger was Su-yi's eternal goal. Chapter 2069. The Brahma Dragon's Celestial Palace was the strongest existence on this continent, and there was a mysterious old man behind it. He had to become stronger quickly. The Long family was not an existence that could be massacred by just having the formation eye. After luck, the most important thing was the final strength. The vast chi of heaven and earth surrounded him, and the mysterious talismans were entwined like light patterns. Su-yi soon calmed down. Outside the window, the sky gradually broke, and the gorgeous morning glow filled the sky. It was red and golden, bright and dazzling. Like a light veil over the clouds, the crimson clouds floated over the top of the Upper Dragon Village. Knock, knock. There was a rush of knocking on the door, and the voice of Qianqian and Xiaolan came from outside the door. Brother Isu, Brother Isu. Save Uncle Lu. Uncle Lu is dying. Opening his eyes, Su-yi pushed the door open, and his face quickly darkened. How could the monster core of a monster void realm black boar be so useless? How long had it been? When he came to the stone house where Lu Qi was, many villagers had gathered around, talking to each other with sadness in their eyes. As soon as Su-yi arrived, everyone made way. Elder Yu stood by the bed with his walking stick, and his white eyebrows were wrinkled. Little brother, Miss Yuya has injected genuine qi into Lu Qi, but I'm afraid. Alas. Elder Yu sighed deeply, shook his head, and knocked on the ground with his walking stick. He regretted, I shouldn't have let them out of the village. A group of villagers behind him also whispered to each other, frowning. From the conversation, Su-yi heard that Lu Qi was the cultivation instructor here. In addition to farm work, he taught the children to strengthen their bodies. He also knew some martial arts, and could be regarded as a capable force in the village. Suddenly, Su-yi understood why Lu Qi's condition suddenly accelerated. People's life depended on their essence, qi, and spirit. From last night's deep talk, he knew that the hope of the whole village to find the patron saint and seek protection all fell on Lu Qi. Not only did they not find him, but they also almost killed the children, and the villagers could not escape the fate of being hunted down again, or even being exterminated. Thinking about it, Lu Qi's heart must be tormented. After a night of worry, his condition worsened rapidly. Narrowing his eyes, Su-yi took a deep breath and asked Elder Yu to bring the villagers out, leaving only him and Long Ye in the house. Boom! Su-yi looked at Long Ye and closed his eyes. At such a close distance, even though Long Ye was trying to hide her aura, Su-yi could still feel the pure and clear aura of the golden dragon. After a while, Long Ye got off the stone bed and looked up to see Su-yi. Her eyes moved slightly and her eyebrows furrowed as she looked at Elder Yu. Village head, I've tried my best, but I can only prolong Lu Qi's life for 12 hours. The poison has completely entered his body, and I can't save him. Or, hearing Long Ye's words, old man, you completely lost his confidence. Even a Yuan Zong expert had said this. He instantly looked at Lu Qi, his eyes filled with tears. Looking at Elder Yu's sad back, Su-yi pondered for a while, then walked to Lu Qi and took his pulse. Relying on the demon-slaying illusionary tome and the ancestral dragon medicine scripture, Su-yi quickly read the obscure information in his mind. The king's official is the heart, the main spirit is the wisdom, the main bloodline is the main deity. Blood is the sea of aura, and the smell is the commander of blood. This is the function of the cycle. If the poison has seeped into it, it needs to be infused with the dragon's breath and supplemented with the dragon cup spiritual fruit to stimulate the spirit and remove the poison. Bathing in the dragon's breath, one can obtain the essence of the sun and moon and the essence of the valley. Then Su-yi stood up, a glint in his eyes. The only way to save him now was to feed him the dragon cup spiritual fruit and supplement it with the Archean dragon's breath. Only in this way could the poison in his body be completely eliminated and soaked in blood and essence. The dragon cup spiritual fruit had always grown in places with strong golden dragon aura. All kinds of situations showed that if there really was a guardian in Shanglong village, it must have the golden dragon bloodline. Su-yi whispered in his heart, I can only gamble. Have you seen enough? Do you have a way? Long Ye was still indifferent, but looking at Su-yi's absent-minded look, she still had some hope. Coming back to his senses, Su-yi smiled slightly and said to Elder Yu, village head, I'm going to find a kind of medicine. If Shanglong village wants to save Lu Qi, please tell me the truth. Benefactor, what do you mean? Elder Yu's eyes trembled, looking at Su-yi uneasily. Su-yi took a deep breath. The people of Shanglong village were now walking on thin ice, so it was understandable that they were unwilling to tell the truth. Immediately, he put his arm on Elder Yu's body, infused the golden dragon's vital qi into his voice, and said, What I'm looking for is the dragon cup spiritual fruit. Village head, you must know whether there are any near Shanglong village. Whether you believe me or not, it's up to you. This. Feeling a familiar aura of the golden dragon, Elder Yu instantly trembled. Being supported by Su-yi, Elder Yu glanced at Lu Qi, who was lying on the bed. Now there was no way at all. Before the enemy arrived, he must not lose his life. Elder Yu pulled Su-yi to his side, sighed, and whispered a few words in his ear. I see. Su-yi nodded, bowed to Elder Yu, and said in a serious voice, I will live up to your expectations. Village head, I'll be back soon. Suddenly, Long Ye, who saw this, burst out and shouted angrily, Where are you going? Take me with you. Why? Su-yi snorted coldly, turned a deaf ear to her, and strode out of the stone door, walking out of the village. Long Ye glanced at the village head and Lu Qi, gritted her teeth, and quickly caught up with him. "Stop right there," I said. "You can't save him, you have to die." Long Ye was flustered and exasperated. Su Yi's speed was unbelievably fast, and in a few steps, he had already reached the village entrance. The golden dragon restriction at the village entrance rose again, and a yellow barrier appeared in the air, as if to push the person with the golden dragon aura out. "Who are you?" Long Ye's eyes were dignified, and her breathing began to quicken, with a long whip in her hand. "I should be the one asking you this question, shouldn't I?" Su Yi stepped forward, and his back still showed no signs of stopping. "You." Long Ye's heart thumped, and her desire to kill Su Yi deepened. Looking at the gradually fading back, she gritted her teeth. Soon, the two of them, one in front and one behind, left the village. Following the path they came, Su Yi shuttled through the dense forest. After passing through the path covered with gravel, Su Yi used the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps at full strength, and his whole body rushed forward like the wind. Walking to the open ground, the distance between Long Ye and Su Yi was getting farther and farther. Walking in front, Su Yi was still not in a hurry. He secretly urged the golden dragon shadow in his mind to begin to capture the aura of the guardian golden dragon. Boom! Chapter 2070. With a loud bang, the long whip was aimed at Su Yi's head. Bang! Su Yi did not stop moving. It was as though he had eyes on his back. With a slight tilt of his body, he dodged the golden python whip with ease. "Damn it! Let's see where you can run to, you stinky herb gatherer." Long Ye was flustered and exasperated as she waved the whip in her hand. Exploding golden shadows spread all over his body, like countless snake shadows, opening their bloody mouths. Bang! Bang! The grass and trees exploded and cracks spread out on the ground. It was a ghastly sight. However, Su Yi did not pay any attention to it and continued to move forward. With the protection of the Golden Dragon's soul and Golden Dragon's blood essence, Su Yi was able to track Long Ye's movements even without looking. The two of them shuttled back and forth in the valley. Long Ye was puzzled as to why Su Yi was always able to dodge her attacks. Glaring at Su Yi, who was as agile as a dancing butterfly, Long Ye's footsteps were mysterious and varied. She fully unleashed her strength as a LV6 Grandmaster. Suddenly, the distance between Long Ye and Su Yi was getting closer and closer. At this moment, the two of them had arrived at a mountain valley. Walala! Under the mountain valley, the water flowed rapidly. There was a huge aura of an expert hidden in the winding mountains and rivers. The ancient and heavy aura was hidden in the cool water vapor. Su Yi looked from afar and stopped in his tracks. The golden dragon token that was hidden in front of his chest glowed. Su Yi focused his gaze and looked around. The surrounding flowers and grass were lush and luxuriant, far more than what he had seen before. His gaze sank and fell on the stream water that was like flying jade and splashing pearls. However, his thoughts were once again shattered by the shadow of a whip. Instantly, Su Yi's figure flashed like a phantom. He turned his head coldly and his body shook. A surge of qi gushed out as he said angrily, "Are you done? What a noisy woman!" Long Ye had never been spoken to in such a manner before. She became even more furious and said with a sharp gaze, "Su, what did the village chief say to you just now? If you want to know, then go ask the village chief. If you aren't ruthless enough and don't want to kill them, then don't try to get anything out of me." Su Yi shrugged. He was like a lion that was about to explode, his eyes fierce. Long Ye was instantly stunned while the feeling of humiliation from being seen through surged into her beautiful eyelashes, and she was visibly moved as she said, "What exactly are you looking for?" Su Yi laughed coldly. Now that things had turned out this way, his guess was completely correct. Long Ye was looking for the guardian deity in Upper Dragon Village. She did not want to kill the village chief as well. She did not want to kill him, which made her identity was even more mysterious. Sui was not sure if she was from the Dragon Clan. Then, Sui shrugged his shoulders. His body moved like lightning, turning into a series of afterimages. He took a few steps forward and said softly, "I'll look for whatever you're looking for. Be quiet. Don't be like a sparrow there." Longya frowned. Her killing intent was getting stronger and stronger. Her right hand, which was holding the long whip, turned pale. But she knew that she could not disturb Sui at this time. She always had a feeling that the man in front of her could lead her to what she wanted. After a short while, they were still in a stalemate. Sui was searching with a plan. In the end, Longya finally stopped pestering him. She followed him closely with her slender legs. Sui looked around and carefully searched the ground. According to the village chief's instructions, Sui went from Upper Dragon Village to Lower Dragon Stream. Sui kept walking toward the water. He glanced at Longya behind him and felt helpless. He laughed in his heart and continued to walk forward. "You led the black pig here. Why did you save Luchi?" Sui squatted down and smelled the herbs in his hand. Longya's eyes softened. She brushed her golden hair aside and looked at him coldly. She said, "You knew it all along. Why didn't you tell me at that time?" Sui chuckled and stood up. He clapped his hands and continued to walk to the stream. He said, "I didn't know whether he was a friend or a foe. I didn't have to stand up for Upper Dragon Village." After a pause, Sui said coldly, "No matter what your purpose is, as long as you don't hurt Upper Dragon Village, I won't kill you." "You? Are you threatening me?" Longya seemed to have heard the best joke. If Sui didn't know how to find the guardian, she would have killed him. Sui shook his head. A killing intent flashed in his eyes. He stared at Longya's blue eyes and said, "I'm not threatening you. I'm informing you." All of a sudden, Longya seemed to have sensed the astonishment of the arrival of an expert. Her imposing manner suddenly weakened, and her voice became weaker. "Okay. I don't want to hurt Upper Dragon Village. But if you find that thing and want to snatch it from me, you will die." Sui shrugged, the corners of his mouth curling into a smile. "You're the first woman who's ever tried to snatch something from me." Bang! Longya lashed out her whip again. At this time, Sui no longer dodged. He looked serious and turned around as if he had changed into another person. Sui had an ordinary face of 25 or 26 years of age. His deep eyes were as bright as a divine pond as he stared at Longya. Suddenly, Longya felt that the man in front of her was extremely powerful and extraordinary. His face was not outstanding, but there was a kind of domineering aura. Longya even felt the domineering aura of her grandfather and the dragon god from Sui. Looking at Sui holding her python whip so easily, Sui drew circles with his palm and gradually put away the whip. He then walked step by step toward Longya. Suddenly, Longya's entire body seemed to be completely sealed by Sui's surging soul energy. "What a strong soul energy!" Longya exclaimed. An Origin Grandmaster was actually sealed by the soul energy of an Origin Emperor? How was this possible? Hundreds of thoughts flashed through Longya's mind, and she felt a chill run down her spine. Longya's pupils shrank as the man in front of her gradually enlarged. Longya shouted angrily as she saw his unique aura lingering in front of her. "What are you doing?" Before she could finish her sentence, Longya's lips were sealed by Sui's palm. Longya frowned and looked coldly at the man in front of her. Sui's body exploded with a mighty aura that seemed to have transcended the heavens and the earth. All of it poured into Longya's body. Longya's body stiffened as Sui brought her to hide behind a big tree. Under the shade of the tree, the two of them were in an ambiguous position. Sui pressed Longya tightly against the tree to avoid the light. Their auras quickly merged. Longya's pretty face was filled with embarrassment and anger. She could only hear Sui's voice transmission. "Shut up. There are people above. Can't you see them? Long Ye followed Su Yi's line of sight and saw two extremely fast and fierce figures floating above her head. If she did not pay attention, she would have thought that they were two big birds. Chapter 2071. This should be the person that the Upper Dragon Village is worried about. You stay here and protect yourself. The pressure will be removed in the next moment. Long Ye's eyes widened as her body stiffened. Su Yi gently opened her tender lips, and a mellow medicinal fragrance entered her mouth. Long Ye could only whimper as she transmitted her voice. Smelly herb gatherer, what did you feed me? Let me go. Su Yi, who was gradually becoming transparent, flew over the valley and dove straight down. Boom! The dull sound of water splashing echoed. Long Ye relaxed as if she had just woken up from a dream. Her eyes widened in fear as she placed her hands on her knees and took deep breaths. After coming out of the Brahma Dragon's celestial palace, Long Ye never dreamed that she would be subdued by an Origin Emperor, twice. It wasn't the suppression of martial arts, it was the suppression of bloodline. When she looked at Su Yi just now, Long Ye actually felt her heart throbbing before Su Yi's soul pressure. With lingering fear, she licked her tender lips that were filled with medicinal fragrance. Thinking of the scene when their eyes met, Long Ye's heart was boiling with anger and her cheeks began to burn. Su, I'm going to kill you. Feeling that her aura was perfectly restrained due to the elixir, Long Ye was shocked. She strolled to the valley. Under the valley, snow surged and turbulent, and the cold was purged. Everything was washed away by the rapid flow of water, and there was no trace of Su Yi. Long Ye stomped her feet as she recovered from the shock. She was stunned for a moment. Looking up at the experts who were already far away, Long Ye heaved a sigh of relief. They weren't looking for Upper Dragon Village. Looks like they came back from the Boundless sect. They are so fast. Upper Dragon Village is safe for now. Long Ye frowned. Looking around and seeing that there was no trace of Su Yi, Long Ye's silver teeth twitched. She pursed her red lips, and a cold light overflowed from her eyes. Damn Su, you little bastard. Come back to the village. I will teach you a lesson. Long Ye waved her jade-like hand, and a wave of vitality rose from beneath her feet. A spatial ripple was formed out of thin air, and it quickly flew toward the Upper Dragon Village. Don't let them find out. Nothing must happen to the people of the Upper Dragon Village. A faint voice echoed in the air. After entering the stream, Su Yi discovered that the water was so deep that he couldn't see the bottom. The water was dark and gloomy, and the air pressure was heavy. The water current was like a small hook, tearing apart Su Yi's clothes. This place was like a giant beast hibernating in the wilderness, indescribably fierce. Su Yi took a deep breath and continued to swim deeper into the water after passing through a section of turbulent shallow water. The further down he went, the more Su Yi could feel the golden dragon aura permeating the water. Amidst the chaos, Su Yi gradually closed his eyes and released his aura to capture the fleeting aura of the golden dragon expert. Amidst the turbulent undercurrents, the golden dragon's shadow circled around Su Yi's body, and the faint golden patterns on his neck and elbows gradually seeped through his clothes and wrapped around Su Yi. In the endless water current, Su Yi was like a golden bubble, floating and wandering. He tried his best to release the golden dragon's aura, and felt the subtle changes in the surrounding air. The water current was like a pulling arm, pulling Su Yi deeper and deeper, and the sound was deafening. The faint dragon's aura filled the water. Suddenly, Su Yi opened his eyes and took out the dragon god's token. He saw that the sparkling and translucent golden radiance on it was even brighter. Su Yi's sword eyes flashed, and he locked onto a whirlpool-like water current deep in the southwest. He was overjoyed. It's there! Whoosh! Su Yi's figure was like a sword. He released the golden dragon's aura, and the surrounding water current opened up a path because of the domineering and majestic dragon's aura. Soon, Sui rushed to the entrance of the whirlpool and dived in. It was like rushing through a thin film of water. After passing through, Sui's clothes quickly dried up, and at the same time, he felt that the violent spatial ripples around him were smoothed out. Raising his eyebrows, he saw a huge underwater karst cave in front of him. Sweet and cold water dripped from the stalactites at the top, echoing in the air. It was cold and bleak. It seems that no one has been here for many years. Sui nodded and said. Smelling the stench of decaying water, he carefully moved forward. Quack! Sui stepped on a stone, and when he lowered his head, he saw that it was a skull. Taking out a piece of vitality stone, Sui saw many bones along the way, and the ground was eerily white. Sui's heart skipped a beat. It seems like there was a huge battle here a long time ago. Chi Feihong frowned and said. From the age of the bones, it was at least a few decades old. Sui nodded and passed through the strange bones. After turning a corner, another strange fragrance of plants and flowers assaulted his face, emitting a strange and dazzling radiance. Dragon flame grass. Een dragon root. Fu longzi. Bloodroot spirit fluid. As far as the eye could see, patches of golden herbs fell in a small valley, and the dragon's aura was vast and mighty. Sui looked up and saw the water ripples above his head. Flying fishes were shuttling back and forth, and there was actually another world below. He couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. Feeling the faint dragon's aura that permeated the void, it was powerful and domineering, and mixed with the fragrance of herbs. Sui's eyes lit up and he felt refreshed. We are finally here. There is indeed the golden dragon's bloodline here. Sui smiled and used the Fuyao 100 transformation steps to rush towards the center of the valley. Landing on the soft ground in the center of the valley, it was as if he was bathed in the ancient dragon's breath. Sui's eyes flickered, and a series of ferocious golden dragons' aura erupted. Between heaven and earth, Sui instantly moved, and the void trembled as if the golden dragon was reborn. Sui's soul and the surrounding environment merged into one. Boom! In the void, a shocked voice came out of nowhere, and the ferocious aura made people tremble for no reason. Young man, why do you have the aura of a golden dragon? Are you from the Long family? The warm valley suddenly became blazing hot, and the wind and clouds surged. An intense killing intent filled the heaven and earth. You are indeed here. Hearing the name of the Long family, Sui knew that the person in front of him must have regarded him as a member of the Long family. Immediately, the golden dragon's soul in Sui's body shook rapidly, and the aura of his whole body burst out. Golden clouds covered his body, and the light was boundless, as if an ancient golden dragon had descended to the world. Roar! Boom! In the valley, the sound of wind and thunder was sonorous. Sui opened his arms and took out the dragon god's token, and the jade immediately shone with golden light. Behind him, a huge golden dragon's shadow rose, and the dragon's pattern was vivid and lifelike. The dragon's head was ferocious, and it was majestic and domineering. At this time, Sui was completely wrapped in golden light. His eyes were golden, and his terrifying aura looked disdainfully at the valley. Sui frowned, and the golden flames around him moved rapidly. In the small space, the space rippled continuously. Seeing the dragon god's token kneel down, the majestic voice was like the sound of heaven, and the vigorous dragon's roar roared in the small valley. Boom! The valley trembled, and the flowers and plants swayed rapidly. A great fluctuation spread out. Chapter 2072. This is Lord Five-Clawed Golden Dragon's Aura. An astonished voice sounded from afar as an extremely skinny old man flew over from the depths of the valley. The old man was as fast as lightning, and golden lines appeared in his eyes. His cultivation gave off the feeling of an absolute expert, but at the same time, he was extremely weak. Su-yi gradually withdrew the aura of the golden dragon as his gaze landed on the old man. His eyes were sunken, and his cheekbones were high. His shriveled body was like a bamboo pole that had been dried by the sun. Apart from the dragon's aura that seemed to have some vitality, the rest of his body was completely dry. The old man trembled and panicked. When he saw the divine dragon token in Su-yi's hand, he involuntarily knelt down and greeted excitedly. "This one is the sixth successor of the Golden Dragon's inheritance, Zhong Yunkang." "Greetings, Lord Commander." Su-yi shook the lifelike dragon-patterned token in his hand and put it away. He smiled. This person actually knew that he was the Divine Dragon Commander and not the Divine Dragon Envoy. He immediately nodded. If this person was the 6th generation, then Shangguan Tianqian should be the 7th generation, and Han Wulong the 8th generation. He was the last successor of the 5-clawed Golden Dragon's inheritance. "How old are you?" Su-yi stroked his chin as he looked at Zhong Yunkang's aged face. The wrinkles on his face were extremely deep, and he was slightly puzzled. Zhong Yunkang slowly stood up with Su-yi's help. He shook his head and sighed. "This one is already close to 260 years old, but I've been in Metal Stone Blessed Land for a whole 160 years. Su-yi's eyes trembled as he placed his hand on Zhong Yunkang's shoulder. He could feel that Zhong Yunkang's cultivation was constantly weakening. His meridians, bones, and flesh were rapidly losing their vitality. In addition, Zhong Yunkang had used a vast amount of yuan qi earlier, causing his physique to rapidly deteriorate. Why is he only at the first layer of the yuan domain realm? Su-yi frowned. At 260 years old, he had already broken through the limits of a human. Xing Feng, Xing Yun, and Duanmu Xiongtu were all geniuses who had reached the peak of the yuan domain realm when they were 100 years old. Some of them even reached the half-step yuan sky realm, becoming the absolute cornerstone of a first-rate sect. The old man before him was an inheritor of the Golden Dragon bloodline, yet he was only at the first level of the origin domain stage. With swaying steps, Zhong Yunkang was supported by Su-yi to sit on a flat stone. Zhong Yunkang sighed bitterly as he looked at the lush, golden, and dazzling medicinal field before him. If it weren't for the Golden Dragon bloodline and these medicinal herbs of the Dragon clan, I would have ceased to exist in the sky barbaric continent a long time ago. Su-yi's heart quickly sank. He took a deep breath and said coldly, "Those white bones outside are the Long family's people, right?" Zhong Yunkang nodded and said in a panic, "Among the 8 generations of the Golden Dragon clan, other than the Long family, none of the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th generations have any bloodline left in the world. However, my bloodline, the Upper Dragon Village, was discovered by the Long family." Zhong Yunkang's eyes were filled with sadness and pain as he told Su-yi. In order to escape the pursuit of the Long family, Zhong Yunkang had been constantly migrating with the villagers of Upper Dragon Village for the first 100 years. Every time they arrived at a new place, they would live and reproduce for a period of time. After a fierce pursuit, the Upper Dragon Village had to move again to the mountains of the Yun Prefecture. It was here that Zhong Yunkang decided to stop running and set up the Golden Dragon restriction in the Upper Dragon Village. He reversed the meridians of all the villagers with the power of the Golden Dragon so that the aura of the Golden Dragon would not leak out even a little bit. He would rather let the villagers of Upper Dragon Village not practice martial arts than let them wander and suffer the threat of death. After that, he led the experts of the Brahma Dragon's celestial palace here alone and killed them all at the cost of his life. Since then, his physique had been deteriorating year by year, and his strength, which was originally a half-step Yuan Tian realm expert, had also gradually deteriorated in the 160 years. Su-yi looked at the old man in front of him who was about to collapse with a serious look. If his cultivation level regressed to the origin ancestor realm, Su-yi knew that there was not much time left for Zhong Yunkang. I didn't expect that the protector in their hearts was their ancestor. Su-yi sighed. Looking at Zhong Yunkang's vitality that was slowly draining away, he rolled his eyes. Now that Upper Dragon Village is in danger, Lu Qi brought people to find you yesterday. Is this the reason why you don't want to see him? Zhong Yunkang nodded heavily, patted his thigh with his dry palm, and said bitterly, Lu Qi's child came here before, and I taught him. But I can teach one child, but I can't teach all the children. All these years, guarding Upper Dragon Village, I have been exhausted. Now I really don't have any ability. After saying that, he burst into tears. The feeling of helplessness of not being able to protect the love in his heart made Su-yi empathize with him. Taking a step forward, Su-yi puffed out his chest and looked at the lush herbs in the valley. Su-yi smiled. Fine. I will use the herbs that you personally planted to save your life. Upper Dragon Village, you protect it. What? Zhong Yunkang suddenly raised his bitter face. In the haze, he seemed to see a young man walking towards him in the divine light. Immediately, all the hair on his back stood up. He heard the bold words that he had not heard for more than 200 years. Upper Dragon Village. Long Yu was still angry when she returned to the village, but she still helped Mr. Yu rearrange the Golden Dragon restriction spell. When they knew that there were strong people looking back and forth outside, all the villagers fell into panic. The whole village entered a state of war alert. After Mr. Yu took Long Ye to see Lu Qi, he hurried out to arrange the war preparations. A group of children were all curled up in Lu Qi's house. They were all gloomy and desperate. Lu Qi, who was lying on the bed, kept oozing black and red blood. His joints were all purple, and he looked terminally ill. Qianqian, Xiaolan and other children leaned on the edge of the bed, turned around, and asked Long Ye with snot and tears. Sister Yuyao, hasn't Big Brother come back yet? Qianqian pouted and cried until her eyes were red and swollen. Counting with his fingers, he realized that there were less than 4 hours left before the 12 hours that Long Ye had mentioned. Long Ye was also full of worries. She didn't know how to answer the children's questions. After coming back, Long Ye had confirmed it with Mr. Yu indirectly. The place where Su-yi jumped was the place where Lu Qi and others were looking for. There should be no mistake. Standing beside the bed, he kept looking around the Upper Dragon Village and said softly, Damn Su, why aren't you back yet? I've already talked to you for 12 hours. How dare you be so careless? Long Ye suddenly moved and hit the window with her fist. Her eyes were overflowing with flames. She was a little scared and said in surprise, Will he be found by those 2 old guys? Long Ye was a little anxious. She pursed her lips and didn't dare to say anything. On second thought, the elixir that Su gave her was so magical. He would not be caught so easily. No, no. Long Ye put her fingers into her wavy blonde hair and played with it desperately. Chapter 2073. The restless Long Ye looked at the helpless villagers and hoped that Su would come back soon. Even if he did not bring back the secret of the Guardian, Long Ye felt that it was okay. Long Ye's long golden hair was extremely charming and her slender waist was extremely attractive to the opposite sex. Long Ye paced back and forth in the house with her left hand tightly holding her right hand. Anyone could see that Long Ye, who had always been calm and proud, was so impatient that she wanted to jump up to the roof. Suddenly, she heard a shout of surprise from outside. You're back! You're back! In the square outside, Elder Yu's shocked voice also came into the house. He shouted loudly, Why are you back? Is it Su? Su is back? Long Ye opened her tender lips and her eyes were filled with surprise. In Lu Qi's house, everyone stood up. Long Ye's eyes were wide open and she hurriedly looked outside the door. Back? Long Ye looked in the direction of the voice. At this moment, a heavy muffled sound came from outside the door. Bang! Before long you reached the door, she saw a light blue figure rushing into the house like the wind. Long Ya's footsteps paused instantly. Father! The young man clung to Lu Qi's side and shook Lu Qi's stiffened body emotionally. Big drops of tears flowed down his face, and he was in great pain. Suddenly, after seeing the figure clearly, Long Ya's heart sank. She hugged her arms and leaned against the railing casually and sighed heavily. A pair of charming eyes glanced back and forth at the person who was clinging to the bed. The person was only 14 or 15 years old. He was only a few years older than Xiao Lei and the others, but his cultivation base had already broken through to the 4th level of the Origin Void stage. Hearing the person calling Lu Qi father, Long Ya frowned slightly. However, it was also because of her that Lu Qi was not saved. Looking at the young figure, Long Ya felt sorry and muttered to herself. So it's Lu Qi's son. Isn't he in the village? How did he come back from outside? After a long while, Long Ya still chose to turn her head and cross the door. She did not want to listen to these words of farewell. This simple village could no longer withstand the wind and rain. Even the disappearance of a villager was a loss of bloodline. Leaning against the window outside the house, Long Ya's fingers gently tapped on her slender thighs. She pursed her lips and sighed softly. She lowered her eyes and thought about something. At this moment, Long Ya's gaze became even more anxious. The green figure at the entrance of the village had yet to appear. Long Ya gritted her teeth and curled her tender lips. Brother Little Can, you're back. Brother Can, you're finally back. In the room, when Qianqian, Xiaolan, Xiaolei and others saw the young man coming in, their eyes were filled with tears and sadness. They followed Lu Can's gaze and stared at Drill Master Lu Qi. Father, Kaner is back. Open your eyes and look at me. In the gatehouse, the sobbing of Lu Can and the group of children instantly infected the surrounding villagers. Some of the nearby villagers put down the weapons in their hands at the same time and sighed with sadness in their eyes. With the help of 2 villagers, Elder Yu slowly walked over with his walking stick. He stood in front of the door and shook his head helplessly, his face full of regret. Little Can, you shouldn't have come back. You are the hope of the whole village. Hope? Standing aside, Long Ya's gaze was slightly startled. She hesitated for a long time but did not ask a word in the end. Village chief, I shouldn't have come back? You want me to stand by and do nothing against Shanglong village at this critical moment? Lu Can's face was gloomy and he stepped out of the stone house with great sorrow. Elder Yu's face instantly became serious and his face flushed red. He scolded, Shanglong village sent you out so that you could preserve the only bloodline. Since the day you received the guidance of the Guardian, your life does not belong to yourself or your father. It belongs to the entire Shanglong village. Lu Can stepped out of the door at once. A stubborn feeling surged in his heart. He pursed his lips and sighed, if I didn't come back, I wouldn't even be able to see my father for the last time. Grandpa village chief, I can't do it. After saying that, Lu Can's eyes became gloomy and a trace of despair appeared on his determined face. He was heartbroken and kept shaking his head. His tightly closed eyes had long been choked with sobs. Everyone in the square was silent. Their lips were pressed into a straight line. A bitter atmosphere shrouded the entire Shanglong village. Today's Shanglong village would inevitably suffer a great calamity. Lu Qi's impending death only ignited the long-suppressed sadness in the hearts of the villagers. Many villagers covered their faces and wept. They didn't want to look at Lu Qi's house anymore. After a long while, Elder Yu could only straighten his back and ask Lu Qi, Little Can, how do you know the situation in Shanglong village? Lu Can seemed to wake up instantly. He wiped his tears and a trace of coldness appeared in his bright eyes. He said, Grandpa village chief, the Long family went to Infinity sect. Infinity sect. Long Ya's eyes instantly frowned. An extremely bad premonition surged in her heart. Hearing the news that the Long family also went to Infinity Sect, Elder Yu's face suddenly changed. He said, "What?" His lips trembled in disbelief. His trembling body was supported by Long Ye. Only then did Lu Kan notice the existence of Long Ye. He said seriously, "Grandpa Village Chief, who is this?" Elder Yu, who was absent-minded, was still immersed in the shock just now. He glanced at Long Ye and introduced her to Lu Kan. He said gratefully, "This is Miss Yu, who sent your father back. She was the one who saved your father and the children from the mouth of the brutal Shadow Black Pig. By the way, there is also a benefactor of Isu. He went outside to look for magic medicine for your father. He will be back in a moment." Narrowing his eyes, Lu Kan pulled Elder Yu from Yuya's hands. Immediately, the strength of the Origin Void stage burst out, shaking Elder Yu's robe. Elder Yu instantly lost his voice and said, "Little Kan, what are you doing?" Long Ye's face also changed. Her cold eyes suddenly shrank. She raised her charming face and looked at this golden dragon bloodline of Infinity Sect. "Are you the one who saved my father?" Lu Kan was not polite at all. Instead, he stared at Long Ye with great fear. Long Ye was angry and amused. It was not enough to meet Isu. Now there was Lu Kan. Were they all people who were not afraid of the strong? Not bad? Do you have something to say? Long Ye frowned and asked in a low voice. The corners of Lu Kan's mouth rose slightly. Instantly, a light blue long sword shot out from his hand. With the sound of the wind, a cold light cut through the air and went straight for the tip of Long Ye's tall and small nose. "I can't see your strength, but I know that you did not save my father out of kindness," Lu Kan said coldly. A threatening aura was released. "Little Kan, how can you say that?" Elder Yu panicked. His aged face was slightly stunned. Faced with Lu Kan's threat, Long Ye did not panic. She did not reveal her aura and looked at the young man in front of her with interest. "Little Kan, did you make a mistake? Miss Yu is the benefactor of our Upper Dragon Village. She went to great lengths to save your father. How can I be wrong?" Elder Yu growled. Chapter 2074. But Lu Kan still shook his head stubbornly. His eyes were burning as he stared at Long Ye's aggressive face. "Village Chief, didn't you ask me why I suddenly came back?" Lu Kan's eyes were like a fierce beast as he whispered. After receiving the news that the Long family was coming to Yunzhou, Master Wu Long held an emergency meeting with the Elders Guild. "I know that the Long family is now looking for bloodline traces again. If they come to Yunzhou, they might find Shanglong Village. That's why I sneaked back. But I want to know, my father is a famous hunter in Shanglong Village. His sensitivity is amazing. Nothing happened when he went to find the Guardian, but something happened when he returned to Shanglong Village? What's the reason?" "This?" Hearing this, all the villagers looked at Long Ye in unison. Yu Laozhu, holding his walking stick, looked puzzled. Lu Kan's words were not without reason. Even when Lu Kan went to receive the Guardian's guidance, it was Lu Qi who led him. There was not a single mistake. Lu Kan snorted coldly and turned his body to one side. He moved his wrist slightly and said, "When the Long family came, you came. Now that you're waiting here, I'm afraid that Isu has gone to inform them." "What?" Elder Yu's eyes were filled with horror as he sucked in a breath of cold air filled with killing intent. Lu Kan's words shocked everyone. The villagers who were present felt their hair stand on end. They were stunned and couldn't recover for a long time. Was it really like what Lu Kan said? Every villager's gaze was as sharp as a knife as they stared at Long Ye, hoping that she could give a reasonable explanation. Indeed, how could the timing be so coincidental? Elder Yu was also silent. If what Lu Kan said was true, then going to the Guardian's place to find the Dragon Cup spirit fruit was completely a conspiracy. Thinking of this, Elder Yu shuddered. A kind of anger surged in his heart. He whispered to Long Ye. Little Can said it. Miss Yao, can you explain? Explain? Long Ye raised her eyebrows. She looked at Lu Can coldly and arrogantly, like a strong person looking down on the weak. Her eyes were full of disdain. The Long clan's martial artists were about to reach the Boundless sect. Lu Can had rushed back after eavesdropping on the news. He must have wanted to open the Golden Dragon restriction so that the Upper Dragon Village could prepare in advance. The Brahma Dragon Celestial Palace's plan to use the dragon race's bloodline to open the Chaos Realm's Golden Dragon Secret Realm was going to face a lot of resistance. Han Wulong's attitude was self-evident. He was against the Long family from the bottom of his heart. Long Ye knew that she had to make a trip to the Immeasurable Gate. Long Ye, who had always been unwilling to explain, suddenly had a gloomy expression on her face. Her arrogant and noble face was filled with a biting cold killing intent as she said in a serious voice. If I want to kill you, none of you will be able to escape. He bowed his body, changing his gentle image. The sudden murderous aura made everyone present shiver as if they were in a cold wind. In unison, all the villagers who had gathered retreated backwards. Their eyes flickered as they whispered to each other. Then, they kept quiet out of fear. Lu Can also gulped as a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. Master, the elders are right. The Upper Dragon Village will definitely suffer a calamity. Yes, you can kill us now, but if you have evil intentions, none of you will be able to escape. No one will be able to escape from the Immeasurable Gate. Don't even think about escaping from Yunzhou. After saying that, a light blue soul crystal hung around Lu Can's neck. Long Ye knew that this soul crystal was connected to Lu Can's soul. As long as Lu Can's life was in danger, the Immeasurable Gate's reinforcements would immediately arrive. The Immeasurable Gate dares to boast so shamelessly in such a small Yunzhou. Sure enough, saving you is not a good thing. Since that's the case, don't save me. Long Ye swung her long hair and tightened her grip on the golden python whip. Her face was filled with a terrifying murderous aura. Even though she had been pampered since childhood and was doted on by her grandfather, the 4 years in the Long Ben army still gave Long Ye great murderous intent. Swords were drawn and the terrifying atmosphere was on the verge of erupting. The dozens of villagers gathered together and were somewhat confused by the sudden change in the situation. Little Can, could it be a mistake? Our benefactor saved us and protected us until now. Brother Can, don't misunderstand Sister Yuya. Yes, don't blame a good person wrongly. Even if Sister Yuya knew that Shanglong village was in great danger, she didn't say that she wanted to leave. Is she really a bad person? I don't believe it. The villagers on the left and right looked embarrassed. Could such a cold and frosty woman really be the legendary villain of the Long family? The villagers' reactions also moved Long Ye, who was standing opposite them, slightly. The murderous intent in her heart instantly melted, but her expression remained unchanged. Long Ye looked as if she would fight to the death if worse came to worst. She stood on her disciple's back with her long whip in her hand and her body emitted a strong explosive sound. You can't do it without me. When I'm not here, you make a mess. A clear laughter came from afar. Immediately, Long Ye's body trembled slightly and a touch of joy was transmitted from between her eyebrows. She raised her cold head and looked in the direction of the sound. From the Golden Dragon restrictive spell at the entrance of the village, a mass of green light floated rapidly. The faint air ripples formed a wall of air which was somewhat blurry. However, Long Ye knew that the person she had been waiting for had finally arrived. Isu. Long Ye's whole body stiffened. Her frown, which had been getting tighter and tighter, suddenly relaxed, and the corners of her mouth slowly raised into an indifferent smile. Brother Isu is back. Benefactor Isu. It's Benefactor Isu. He's back with the magic medicine. Young and tender voices kept coming from the inner room. Xiao Lei, Qian, Xiao Lan, Anyo, and Xiao Ben finally saw hope and ran out in surprise. They ran past Lu Kan and happily rushed to Su Yi's side. They were so close to him that it was as if Su Yi had really become their big brother. With Su Yi around, everyone could feel at ease. He could always give everyone an unparalleled sense of security and stability. Su Yi smiled slightly and stretched out his hand to intimately touch Qian and Xiao Lan's heads, as if he was looking at his own little sisters. If Wan was here, she should feel the same way. Su Yi's heart slightly trembled. Looking around, many villagers were so excited that hot tears flowed from their eyes. Only Elder Yu suppressed the excitement in his heart and walked forward firmly. Found it? He especially emphasized the last word, looked at Su Yi and asked tentatively. Elder Yu's turbid old eyes burst with the desire for life. If he could save Lu Qi, Su Yi would be recognized by the guardian. Shanglong village would be saved. Nodding with a smile, Su Yi quietly shifted his gaze from Elder Yu to Long Ye and whispered, "I didn't disappoint you. I rushed back at the stipulated time." In the not-so-big square, the atmosphere was dead silent, and the miserable atmosphere finally disappeared like smoke in thin air. Chapter 2075. In an instant, everyone subconsciously wiped the tears from the corners of their eyes. The long-awaited relaxation made them feel gratified. Good, good, good. Elder Yu finally burst out with an excited shout, and kept hitting the ground with his cane. Elder Yu looked at the young man in front of him with a gentle smile, and his old eyes couldn't help but feel a little sore and swollen. The villagers present were so excited that they shouted excitedly. Some of them even spoke without thinking, and their eyes were filled with tears. "Wait!" A sharp cry burst out from Lu Kan's throat. Isu's return meant that his father could be saved. Even so, Lu Kan still suppressed his excitement, hiding more fear and doubt in his eyes. Long Ye snorted softly and crossed her arms. Her eyes fell on the vigilant Lu Kan and she whispered, "Isu, someone doesn't appreciate it." Su Yi was startled, and then he looked at the young man in front of him with a smile. He knew that once Lu Kan came back, the Infinite Sect would quickly know the situation here. "You are Lu Kan?" Su Yi bowed, and his hands intimately pulled a few younger children. "Yes, I am. Lu Qi is my father. They said you can cure my father?" Su Yi looked up at the sky and estimated that there were still 2 hours left. He said faintly, 70%. "What's 70%? Lu Kan asked, his young face full of doubts. 60%. Su Yi looked at Lu Kan with a piercing gaze, like a long sword in the dark night. He said coldly, "If you delay for a moment, you will kill your father." As soon as he said this, the villagers present frowned. Lu Kan gritted his teeth and said, "I want to check the magic medicine you brought back. If it's not harmful, I will let you in immediately." "Little Kan, you are too much." Elder Yu and the villagers frowned instantly. Su Yi had worked hard to find medicine for Lu Qi and Shanglong village, and now he was being questioned like this. This was a great insult to his benefactor. Su Yi shook his head and smiled bitterly. The young man in front of him was really stubborn, and he had his own mosey. "Do you know about the Dragon Cup spirit fruit?" Su Yi asked with a smile. Hearing these words, Lu Kan stared blankly for a moment, his eyes brimming with astonishment. Then, as if a pot had exploded, he turned to look at Elder Yu. "Grandpa, how did he know where we are?" Without waiting for Elder Yu's reply, Su Yi raised his head with a smile and shrugged. "Since I was able to obtain it, I don't need to say what I can prove, right? You have obtained the recognition of the Lord Guardian." Lu Kan's slightly immature face opened and closed his spirit eyes as he spoke coldly. Taking a deep breath, Su Yi stretched his body. Looking at the dim yellow glow of the sun in the sky, he narrowed his eyes and said, "Only 50% left. All right." As if he had made a great decision, Lu Qi quickly stepped aside and looked at Su Yi coldly. He said, "If you can save my father, I will be grateful. If you can't save my father, I will take revenge." The corners of Su Yi's mouth curled up slightly. The young man in front of him had some of his own charm. "Is there a secret room in Shanglong village?" "Yes, yes." The villagers rushed to answer. Now it was a race against time, so there was no need to distinguish between them. Su Yi looked around and gave orders like a master. He whispered, "Take Lu Qi to the secret room. Lu Kan, lead the villagers to strengthen the inhibition in the village. This inhibition can be used for both offense and defense. I don't need to tell you how to use it." Hearing this, everyone's eyes were filled with astonishment. Immediately, the same thought appeared in everyone's eyes. Isu in front of them had obtained the recognition of the Lord Guardian. This was an opportunity sent by the Lord Guardian to save Shanglong village. Immediately, Elder Yu's face flushed with excitement. He shouted angrily at the crowd, "What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for death? Everyone, get moving!" In an instant, many people ran to their own houses. Their figures wriggled like ants moving house, and they were busy. Longya, who was standing aside, looked at Su Yi with a trace of doubt in her eyes. She did not understand what was going on. "Don't look at it. That is a unique inhibition. Each house controls an energy node." When Longya came to herself, Su Yi was already looking at her with a faint smile. She suddenly thought of the tree trunk at the lower dragon stream, and felt a little nervous. "Come with me. You are the only one who can save Lu Qi," Su Yi said in a low voice. "Me?" Longya pointed at herself and looked at Su Yi with confusion. She did not understand what Su Yi meant. Could Su Yi save Lu Qi? What did it have to do with her? Before she came back to her senses, Su Yi held her arm. Suddenly, Longya felt a strong numbness flowing to her dantian, and her body suddenly became weak. Is there really only a 50% chance? Along the way, Longya glanced sideways at this unpredictable man and asked softly. Su Yi kept smiling without saying anything. Soon, Su Yi and Longya came to the underground secret room under the guidance of the village head. "Village head, Shanglong village has been in your care for 4 hours. I will return Lu Qi intact." Elder Yu nodded heavily and left with Lu Kan gratefully. After they left, a heavy muffled sound came from outside. The huge stone door fell and a faint golden dragon might overflowed from the crack of the wall. Obviously, this was also a place that controlled the golden dragon inhibition. After everyone left, everything was quiet. Lu Qi was lying on the cold stone bed. In the strange quiet atmosphere, Longya wanted to avoid embarrassment and was ready to check Lu Qi's injury. Bang! Su Yi raised the corner of his mouth with a strange smile. Once again, he grabbed Longya's snow-white wrist from behind, and she turned around in the air. Golden waves flashed like light. Su Yi held Longya against the wall with one hand and restrained her with the other hand. Longya was tightly pressed under his body. Her delicate body was locked by Su Yi again. Longya was shocked and angry, but she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her body was curled up under Su Yi's chest. She looked up at Su Yi's arm, which was not very sturdy but very firm. The sound of her heart beating could be heard in front of them. This time, Longya found that she could open her mouth and speak under the suppression of Su Yi. The closer she was to Su Yi, the more she could feel that Su Yi's breath had weakened a lot at this time, and his control over himself was not as perfect as before. "Who?" Supporting himself against the wall, Su Yi's face suddenly turned pale. A sense of exhaustion spread to his cheeks and big beads of sweat flowed out from his pores. "What's wrong with you?" Being stared at by Su Yi, Longya suddenly twisted her body unnaturally. She pressed her white teeth against her tender lips and whispered, "Don't you want to know if I can save you?" "Of course I can." Su-yi breathed a long sigh of relief. He rolled his eyes and instantly became very serious. Hearing this, Long Ya's slightly bent long legs instantly began to struggle. Her restrained wrist also tried to break free. She said angrily, "Then what do you mean? Why do you want me to come in?" Ignoring Long Ya's movements, Su-yi's golden eyes flashed a trace of dragon might. Long Ya's body trembled subconsciously and her whole body stiffened. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.